Testing, testing. Testing 1 2 3, testing 1 2 3. And we are back in the house. Make sure I got the audio cracking. Salute. Yeah, you know, I know this is a highly unusual broadcast because we normally broadcast on the evening of Saturday. So this was a surprise. I know I don't expect many, if any, people, Knight Riders included, to be in the building because this is, well, I wouldn't say it's impromptu because I did announce that, you know, at least when we posted that we would be doing it, it was about a day or so in advance. But at any rate, I know this is not the normal scheduled programming, so I don't expect a lot of people to be in the house. But salute to anybody that decides to come through. And we're doing this because we had a bit of some issues on our initial broadcast. I don't know exactly what was going on, but everything that was known to man seemed to be going on when we were trying to get things cracking as per usual on our normal scheduled time. So as a consequence, I decided to take the opportunity to go ahead and do the broadcast tonight. I'm not exactly sure how long we're going to go because, as I said, this is an unusual time, but I had the opportunity to just present a little window of time so that I could kind of make up for it. And you know how we do over here. We definitely like to be men of our words, so we don't like to leave, the people hanging based on when we were normally going to broadcast. So I decided to go ahead and do it today. We still plan to do the broadcast coming, this Saturday evening. So just because we're doing it later in the week now doesn't exclude that we're going to still do it on our normal time. So I did want to make that clear. And again, I don't know if anybody's going to be in the house. So I am expecting that you can hear me. But if not, then we will find out. I'm going to double check to see if I can make sure that the audio is coming through. Because like I said, I'm not sure exactly what was going on. We were, I think somebody didn't want this broadcast to happen, quite frankly, because it's going to be crazy. We are definitely going to get it in, and that's the reason why I want to go ahead and still do it. Because I do have kind of an itinerary, if you will, on some of the broadcasts that I'm going to be doing. And I did want to make sure that we did this particular broadcast to talk about this topic that we know as the ExTHOTicals, that we affectionately call women of a certain background. That does not apply to any and all women of mixed race, but certainly the ones who would fall under the category of, say, your Brittany Renners, your we covered it on ExOticals Part 1, the ones who were kind of very loose and basically had some pretty wayward upbringing and have questionable morals and things like that. So we just affectionately call them the ExTHOTicals. But we're going to take a very interesting turn, I should say, in tonight's broadcast, because we're going to go with an angle that I don't think you guys are ready for. So you really need to buckle up for this broadcast. So you have been forewarned, and we're going to get right into it. I do have a couple of things I'm going to talk about first, just to kind of get the prime pumped, as we like to do, or the pump primed, as I should say. But what we're going to do is handle this angle based on a lot of the rhetoric that's going on, because there's this narrative out there that somehow it's the biracials or the mixed people who have black fathers that are the ones with all of the issues. And it's the usual suspects who are the ones propagating this talking point. But we are going to dispel that. As you have seen the title, we're going to be dealing with Klan Keisha's kids. And that's not to be confused with some of the black women who may just through circumstance find themselves with a man from another race. Because as we've pointed out several times on this broadcast, that's not something that black men typically have an issue with nowadays, seeing as how a lot of black women like to present that as an issue with black men, which nothing can be further from the truth. We just talk about the type of men that they choose, which typically can be those who have questionable backgrounds. We may call them the bottom shelf brads. We may call them the undercover Klan guys, the guys who pretty much as a cover, they will get themselves a black woman, but deep down they're racist. And that's the reason why they want the women to wear their natural hair and do all of this type of stuff, because it kind of reminds them of the slave play and all that goofy type of shit. And we're going to go deep tonight because, like I said, you better buckle up for this one. We got my man Bama Phi Bama in the house. Salute, bro. He says, whoa, you here on a weeknight? Salute. Yeah. Like I've said in the opening, we had some issues on our initial broadcast, bro. So I decided to give you guys a double dose. And we're going to broadcast tonight, and then we're going to still do our normal show. So I just wanted to, do that because we are men of our word around here, and we're pretty tenacious. So when we found out there were some issues, we doubled down and say, hey, they're going to get this work regardless, because you're going to see why there may be some problems with this broadcast. Just sit tight, bro. It's going to be crazy. But yeah, we're going to get right into it. Yeah, it's crazy. But again, bro, I'm surprised anybody's showing up. I didn't expect anybody or not too many people. So it's good to see you. But regardless as to whether or not you're here for the live, which we prefer, even when you get this playback, it's going to be crazy. So just be warned. And as I said, you better buckle up. And if you're the faint of heart, if you're sensitive, I was going to put an advisory on the thumbnail. We didn't get around to doing it, but I am verbally telling you right now, this broadcast is not for the weak. It's not for the faint of heart. It's not for the truth adverse. We are going in tonight. You know how we do. We do not play over here. When I give you those type of warnings, it's for a reason. Ordinarily, we're kind of lighthearted, and we keep it fun, and we do make it informative as well. And this is going to be informative. We're going to try to stick some fun in here and there, but we're going to have to go in tonight because, like I said, there's a false narrative going around when it comes to a lot of these women, unfortunately, who try to demonize black men, and also they try to demonize the offspring of black men. If he goes with a non-black woman, the sisterhood is trying to say that it's those type of biracials that are the problems, right? But the ones that have black mothers, allegedly by them, they're saying that they're all good and they're more rounded and they're more grounded and all this type of stuff. But we're going to challenge that notion tonight in a very powerful way. So I'm telling you right now, you don't want to miss this one. Oh, and by the way, I don't know if I gave the official welcome, but I'd like to welcome you all to another exciting episode of the Knight Riders Squadcast. So we do want to make sure that we got that out of the way. Now, so like I said, I don't know how long we're going to be tonight. I typically, want to keep it between 2 hours and a half, maybe 3. I don't know tonight because, this is out of our element, but we definitely have a lot of things to cover. So the first thing I'm going to do is kind of get into some news that I wanted to touch on. And, it just kind of gets the things, get everything up and running. I want to make sure that the audio is coming through. So we're going to touch on these tariffs and Trump and some of the issues going on between him and China real quick. Just some short little takes. Because like I said, the bulk of this show is going to be on the topic. And I have a lot of powerful clips to show on that. So I'm not going to spend too much on the preliminary stuff, but I do want to, get us off as we do normally. So let me go ahead and get that cracking here in one moment. So get that up on the screen. So yeah, we're going to talk about this briefly here. Let's get it. And Bama, bro, let me make sure that you can hear the audio. Got my man Israel Young Lion in the house. He says, salute to the Knight Riders. Yeah, you got the real Knight Riders going to show up. I know you guys, some of the real Knight Riders going to show up no matter what. But to be honest, even if none of you guys showed up, it's cool because I know we've never broadcast like this before on a whole different day. So that lets you know how crazy it's going to be. But anyway, let's get it. Make sure that the audio is coming through crisp on the clips because you got to hear all the clips tonight. All right, let's get it.
So two of the world's biggest economies are locking horns, the United States and China.
Now, I expect, because, we did the testing and all that on our end, so we saw that everything came through, but we want to make sure on your end you guys can hear it. Yeah, man, how you guys still finding it? They got my man Ray Hamna, the Hamna Force in the house. What's good, bro? Yeah, so you guys, I'm glad to see you showing up. You're in for a good one tonight, so that's cool. Good to see you. So, yeah, and guys, let me confirm that you can hear the audio, okay?
They're in a trade war, and it is getting uglier by the day. Each day brings a new tariff. This is no longer about policy. This has become a contest, with each side trying to outdo the other. Yesterday, the U.S. raised tariffs on China again. The new rate is 145%. 145% tariffs on Chinese goods coming into the U.S.
And it's like I mentioned to you guys when I last touched on this, I do see in principle where Trump is coming from. There has been a huge disparity and there's been a long history of trade imbalance between the U.S. and these other nations. However, you got to look at the history. And the history is that a lot of these companies were the ones who decided to voluntarily outsource because they were chasing lower wages. And so all of this outsourcing and things that were going on, of course, the Chinese, for their part, they're going to make sure that they benefit. So they had a clause that said, if you American companies want to come over here and manufacture using our labor force, what you have to do is make sure that you share technology. You're going to share a lot of this infrastructure with us so that our local businesses can basically have the opportunity to build our own domestic markets. So that we can also benefit from the fact that you have your factories over here. So they did something very smart. They made sure that they got access to these technologies, whether it was legal or illegal. because China is probably the number one place when it comes to copyright infringement or intellectual property theft. But at the same time, you have to look at the fact that they were the ones who, and when I say they, those companies, the American companies that decided that they were going to go ahead and offshore, and then you had presidents like Clinton who basically gave China all of these benefits like number one trade status. I remember when all this was going on because I was working in the financial industry at the time, and I would watch all of this unfold. I was a avid reader of the Financial Times, Wall Street Journal, and I was really following all of this stuff as it unfolded. And I knew back then that this was going to be a problem. And Israel says the Chinese going crazy. Oh yeah, man, it's crazy. He said, Rayham said, I got some 420 tonight. Hey man, you gonna need some of that. You know what I'm saying? So I know over here we kind of leave it up to you guys in terms of how you want to do it. I personally don't indulge in a lot of intoxicants. Every once in a while I might have a drink, but to each his own. But when it comes to tonight's program, you might need a little something. I'm just saying, but just sit tight. But anyway, yeah, but that's kind of what's going on. And like Israel just said, yeah, they're going crazy with these tariffs. But let's get a little bit more of this.
And today, China hit back. They will tax all U.S. imports at 125% now. At the same time, Beijing has drawn a line. It said that this would be their final move. No more tariff hikes from China after this one. Because frankly, the numbers don't matter anymore. They have stopped making sense. China says the current tariffs are already too high. At these levels, trade between the U.S. and China no longer makes sense.
Yeah, that's crazy. And like the other thing that I mentioned, and I think when I first dropped that video regarding this, is that there's so many things that are made in the U.S. And like I said, I do understand what Trump is doing in principle. However, I don't believe that the way he's going about it is going to, in the long run, benefit the U.S. And the way China can play its hand is that it could just fall back and start trying to look for other markets, even though the United States is the number one market. And I get it, but the update to this story, because this particular video's a day or so old, I heard that one of the main things that caused Trump to kind of back down off of this, when he decided to give that 90-day moratorium, was the fact that the Chinese, but the Japanese were starting to dump their treasuries. And if you guys don't understand what that means, because I know, you may not be able to get this type of breakdown in many other places, but you're dealing with someone who's actually a financial professional. When the Chinese or the Japanese, who own over $1 trillion each, not together, but each of them own over $1 trillion in U.S. treasuries. And those of you who may not know, treasuries are debt instruments that the United States issues for, to finance its deficits. Because as you know, the United States has a, perpetual budget deficit because it overspends. It doesn't collect the amount of money through taxation or other means to cover its expenditures. So what they do is sell what's called treasury bonds to primarily other countries or, big money investors or institutional or corporate or whoever, will buy these debt instruments. And it just so happens that the Chinese and the Japanese they own the most. And the Japanese, I think, are number one. And even though they were trying to make appeals to Trump to exclude themselves from the, I believe, 25% tariff that he put on them, when that didn't happen, they start on the back end selling treasuries, which is a powerful move, because what that's going to do is put the U.S. in a position where it's not going to be able to finance its obligations. And so at that point, you kind of have to back off, and that's what happened. So I'm just giving you guys a little insight right there. And Israel says they exposing, he's talking about the Chinese. He said they're exposing how they make these so-called, quote, luxury items for like 5 cents to make and reselling them for thousands. Damn. That's crazy. So yeah, you know what? I saw some of that where they were all these like Hermes and Louis and all these different, the brands that the B Dubs go crazy for, want to spend thousands of dollars, but it only takes pennies on a dollar to make. Yeah, exactly. And then he says, "We about to see the Chinaman for $10 Louis, um, $10 Louis Vuitton bags." Yeah, they could do that. See, because the profit margins are so high, and you know what the Chinese are doing? They're circumventing a lot of these tariffs by shipping through India, shipping through Vietnam, shipping through all of these other Southeast Asian countries that may not have tariffs as high as theirs. Because even the tariff that Trump put on Vietnam, which was high, and the reason why he did it so high for Vietnam was because that's a primary destination for China to circumvent their tariffs. But he's made them so high for China that anywhere, including Vietnam, that he decides to, circumvent them, they're still paying less tariffs. So that's the crazy part. But let's get a little bit more of this video, then we're going to get to the next one. Let's get it.
So if Trump raises tariffs again, Beijing says it will not respond, at least not on the tariff front. The Chinese Commerce Ministry issued a statement. It said this numbers game, and I'm quoting, has become a joke. And China's foreign ministry went further to say this.
Our countermeasures against the U.S. bullying are not only to protect our legitimate rights and interests, but also to uphold international rules and order, safeguard the common interests of all countries, and maintain international fairness and justice. In the face of U.S. bullying and hegemony.
And what's so crazy, Israel, I'm looking at your comment again. He says we're about to see those $10 Louis bags. See, what's crazy is that type of stuff is the only thing that's going to get like a lot of these women like the B-dubs and the Western women that we kind of talked about during the last broadcast, that would get their attention more so than some of the other major things that we talked about as far as like the medications. Because I remember I mentioned that probably before I heard anybody else mention it when it came to the pharmaceuticals and when it came to the psychotropics and all of these different medicines that people need and these other things people don't understand that they're made in China. The other thing that the Chinese could do is that because they control like 90% of the rare earth minerals, they could start gatekeeping a lot of that stuff and a lot of these type of products that people are used to having that you take for granted. I mean, just everyday stuff, you won't have access to it. So it's going to get crazy. So that's why, once again, over here, we recommend that you guys prep. I'm gonna be dropping some information on that, and we're gonna have to probably start doing some behind the scenes meetings, and I'm gonna be talking a little bit more about that in the future, some ideas that I want to present, but that's a subject for another time. But let's get a little bit more of this and we're gonna move on. Let's go.
Compromise and concession.
Yeah, and Israel says that, of course, they too focus on vanity. Yeah, and that's that's the reason why a lot of you guys are moving the way you're moving, because in the past, part of a woman being under your leadership would be that she's leaning on the fact that you guys are the ones that's interested in this type of stuff. See, they're not really interested in it as a whole. Now, there are some that are, but by and large, they're caught up in gossip and vanity and a lot of that stuff too. And that's not to say that we don't talk about some of that stuff too, but you notice we do balance, and we, just like tonight's broadcast, before we get into the heavy work, we're just, we're dealing with some of these current things when it comes to the economics, because it's very important and it's all encompassing as far as your situation. And then Israel says we might see a bunch of crash outs for people missing out on meds. Oh yeah, that's one of the reasons why I pointed that out, is because it's very serious, because America is probably one of the most heavily medicated populations in the country. And you think violence and everything is off the chart now, you let people not be able to get these antidepressants and all these other things, which, as I mentioned before, a high percentage of those medicines are manufactured in China. And even if the medicines themselves are not, the active ingredients are. So it's crazy. But let's get a little bit more.
Are not a way out.
They're calling the Americans bullies. Trump doesn't seem too bothered, though. He has repeated his offer. Donald Trump wants to sort things out with Xi Jinping. Yesterday, he called the Chinese president a friend.
What happens with China? We would love to be able to work a deal. We're resetting the table. And I'm sure that we'll be able to get along very well. I have great respect for President Xi. He's been, in a true sense, he's been a friend of mine for a long period of time. And I think that we'll end up working out something that's very good for
I wonder if she feels the same way, but anyway.
both countries. I look forward to it.
Trump did not have to wait long for a response. Today, China's president broke his silence. Xi Jinping spoke publicly for the first time since the trade war began. And his message to President Trump was clear. We won't be making any deals. In fact, let me quote from what he said. For over 70 years, China's development has relied on self-reliance and hard work, never on handouts from others, and it is not afraid of any unjust suppression. We are not afraid. That is the message from Xi Jinping, and China is hitting back. It is expanding the battlefield. This is not just about tariffs anymore. This dispute is spilling into other areas like people-to-people ties. China has issued a travel warning for the U.S.
That's crazy. So now they're putting travel warnings and everything. That's crazy. But yeah. So I just wanted to show a little bit of that. Let me see. I think I got another quick clip before we get everything warmed up. Let me see. Oh yeah, this is one about the we like the iPhones or something like that. Let's get it.
So Trump is putting caveats on his trade war. The question is why? After all the bravado, why is he backpedaling now? Mainly because of two reasons. The first is America's dependency on China, and the second is public backlash. We look at both these factors. Electronics is the biggest category of US imports from China. Your smartphones, your laptops and computers, these make up 20% of the total imports from China.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Imagine a 145% tariff on this trade.
Now you notice, you guys, in that clip right there where she's showing all those people working, those Chinese making probably a fraction of what Americans would make for the same type of work. Do you see this being replicated in America where you can have this type of sweatshop environment, especially for the wages? So again, I do understand the desire to have things reshored or put back, as far as bringing back manufacturing, but you're not going to be able to manufacture certain things that are complicated, like the electronics, like such as iPhones and things like that, which require a lot of different components, because it takes a lot of different people working on that. And if you're going to have an American workforce to do that, I mean, you're going to be paying $5,000 for an iPhone. It's ridiculous. But let's get a little bit more.
It would have made electronics unaffordable for Americans. Just consider the iPhone. The 16 Pro Max sells for $1,200. The tariffs would have...
Yeah, that's already kind of overpriced. But anyway, let's go.
Increased that price by a lot to almost $2,150 per phone. And why is that? Because China assembles almost 90% of all phones. It is basically a monopoly. Same with computers. China makes 81% of laptops and personal computers.
Damn.
So if you tariff China, all of this becomes more expensive, a lot more expensive. American tech companies would have raised the price of their products. We're talking about a visible and sharp hike here, and Trump cannot afford that right now. Which is the second reason. Around 56% Americans disapprove of Trump's handling of the economy. That's 7 points up from last month. Clear.
Yeah, so that just shows on both ends that it wasn't necessarily a good idea. That's the reason why he had to kind of back off for the 90 days. And it's like I pointed out, I said, I do get in principle, I called it, back weeks ago before he even implemented these. I said, well, I do understand in principle why he's doing it, but I don't believe tariffs are the way to go, especially given the fact that there's so many factors that are contributing to, inflation and so forth already. And then he's doing that. So again, I don't think that was the best option. But anyway, we'll see. I just want to, let you guys see a little bit of that. So now what we're going to do, we're just going to get right into this because it's kind of crazy. And like I said, we're going to get into some very deep stuff as far as why this is an issue when it comes to the, as we call them, the Klan Keishas. And the Klan Keishas are the ones who have this internalized self-hate, and they seek out those bottom shelf brads who are not a catch in their own demographic, and they don't mind, quote, slumming with black women, and they have a mutual hatred of black men in particular, and so they're bound by that. And it gets very nasty because when these two come together, where you have the self-hating Klan Keisha and the actual Klan member, then unfortunately, and as you're going to see a little bit later, those children, Klan Keisha's kids, they become some of the most dysfunctional people in society. And we're going to show that, contrary to this false notion that they want to put out here, that somehow it's the black men who are having these biracial children with the white women. And you have all these videos that biracials are coming out with that have white moms, and they talk about, oh, well, she didn't teach me how to comb my hair, she was racist and all this. I said, okay, that's light work compared to the dysfunction, as we're going to prove, that goes on with those Klan Keishas when they get with these guys who are racist. You're going to see some stuff tonight that's going to blow your mind. We're going to show it. And then Israel says they know what's coming, LOL. Yeah, exactly. So we're going to have to put this into some perspective, guys, because again, this is going to be something that is going to be it's going to be a hard pill for a lot of people. And I know over here at the Knight Riders, you guys are used to that heavy work, but even for this one, you guys are going to have to strap in as well. But I'm going to have to put things into a larger context, and I'm glad Israel's in the building because I'm sure he's going to rock with a lot of this information that I'm going to be putting out here. Because what we're going to have to do in the beginning is we are going to have to give some perspective in terms of history and how we got here. Because what a lot of people like to do is make it seem like, based on the false teachings of, with the white supremacy and all of that, that somehow we are running around with the west coast of Africa, naked, and somebody threw a net on our ancestors and put us on some boats and brought us over and made us slaves. And those of us who know our actual history, we know it's a lot deeper than that. And so I'm not going to go into the minutia of all of that, because we can definitely dissect all of that. But I am going to give you guys a broad sense of kind of where we started, because we're going to have to show you that to show you how low things got and why it turned out. And as a result of the things that happened, we're going to show you the development of the mentality of the Klan Keisha. Because contrary to what you might think and what you may not hear in other places that talk about this topic, I'm going to use a scalpel, whereas mostly people like to use the hatchet or the axe when they're talking about this. But I'm going to use a scalpel for this because it's important to be able to show how this all unfolded. And it's going to be very interesting, so just sit tight. And what I mean by that is, when it comes to the mentality of these Klan Keishas, or the black women in general, it wasn't always like that. And there was a point in history where they were not in opposition to the authority of the black man. And through a process that we're going to show you is how this has happened. And I like to use the example of like water, right? Now, if you take water, we all need it, and we're all, I mean, it's a part of us. I think 70% of the human body is comprised of water, right? However, if you grew up in an environment, like some of you younger guys, and all the water that you saw around you was polluted and toxic, you would begin to believe that water itself was bad. You would begin to believe that there was no water on this earth that was clean and pure. Because if you were around a place that had sewer water or toxic chemicals all in the water, then you would think that that's what water was. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of guys, when they talk about this topic, they will make it as though the intrinsic nature of black women is to be like they are now. And it's actually not. And in fact, there are some of us, because like I said, I'm probably older than a lot of you guys that's in the house right now. A lot of people get it twisted, because even during my lifetime, I was young, but there was a time that the behaviors that you see with black women today was not the norm. There was a certain segment of black women that behaved a certain way, but there was enough normalcy that you could have something positive to compare it to. I kind of compare it to like how hip hop is, right? Like back in the day, you had a lot of different styles of hip hop. You know, you had your party hip hop, you had your conscious hip hop, and then you had your gangster, you know, more vulgar stuff, right? It was something for everybody. And that's how the women were. You know, you had a baseline of standards with these women. There was a distinction between what would be considered a, quote, decent woman and a whore. Nowadays, there's no difference, because even the, quote, regular women are basically 304s, right? So I say that to say that there used to be a time where you could see that there was a difference. But over time, it's all become blended into this clusterfuck of just everything going down, and how they've been basically transformed into these bioweapons that have destroyed the community, and as well as make them not even a natural match anymore for a lot of you quality black men out there. So we're going to get into that. What did Israel say? He says biracials with black fathers do way better than with black mothers. Yeah, but again, Israel, that's the false narrative that they're putting out here. They're putting out the false narrative that somehow it's the ones with the black fathers that are dysfunctional, but we're going to prove all that false. And then he says biracials with black mothers have extreme issues. The ones with black fathers acknowledge and accept their black side more often. Yeah, we're going to get into that. I'm going to show you, bro. But like I said, what I'm going to do now is go into some of this history, because again, I think a lot of times people like to make it seem as though specifically black men were just like always on the bottom, and that a lot of these banshees like Cynthia G and the rest of them, they put out these false narratives that black men, they've always been conquered, they never did anything, they never built anything, all of that kind of stuff, right? So what we're going to have to do is give a brief history on where we were, and I'm going to start at a specific point in history, one that people often overlook, but I'm going to deal with that, because what they like to do is start it on the west coast of Africa and just show that, again, we were just kind of naked running around, and then somebody came out with a net and started rounding us up, right? You know that BS Hollywood narrative, that's what they want to believe. But in actuality, in Israel, again, I know you in particular, and if Shadow was in the building, he would know as well, a couple other guys as well. But there's actually history that people don't know about, because it has been hidden. And I'm not just talking about what the Moors did up in Europe, in the Iberian Peninsula. But alongside the Moors, you also had the black Jews that were up there as well. And the reason why this is important is because those things that were issued against them, such as the Inquisition, because you've all heard of the Spanish Inquisition, right? Well, what they don't tell you is that those Inquisitions were specifically targeting the black Jews that were up in the Iberian Peninsula, because just like with the Moors, they conquered that area for 700 years. It started in 711 to about 1492. And again, everything that I say over here is documented. But when you heard about the Spanish Inquisition, they try to make it seem like they were just going after people who didn't accept the Catholic faith and all of that. But it was deeper than that. And the biggest targets of that were the black Jews that were up there in the Iberian Peninsula. They had been up there for hundreds of years alongside the Moors. And what they were doing was rounding them up, trying to convert them, taking their children away from them. And that led to the transatlantic slave trade. See, what they like to do is try to separate these events as if they happen on like hundreds of years apart. The Inquisitions were about 10 years divided or separated from the transatlantic slave trade. And then Israel says the Mali Empire, Ghana Empire, Songhai Empire, the Moors, and Iberia were innovators. Yeah, exactly. But it's very important that I bring this out because, again, just sit tight. We're going to get into some very heavy work, but I got to set the tone, because if I don't do it this way, then it's not going to give people the proper perspective. And it's very important that you guys understand what I'm going to be dropping tonight. So, as I said, those kingdoms, essentially, kind of like what Israel just mentioned, as well as what was going on in the Iberian Peninsula, we are direct descendants of those kingdoms. And if you do your DNA test, you'll find out some of the things that I know, which is I know that my lineage, I come from that line were some of those guys that were ruling up in that particular Iberian Peninsula. And if you do your test and it comes up to where you have DNA that goes up into the Iberian Peninsula, particularly in a place that used to be called the city of Granada over in Portugal, then that will let you know that, because this DNA would be not based on the current population, but they do DNA tests that are based on the bones that are buried over there, and it predates the transatlantic slave trade, because it lets you know that the Moors and the Hebrews that were up there, if your ancestry links up to that, then you probably are part of that royal lineage. And a lot of those people that were expelled from that Iberian Peninsula that got caught up in the transatlantic slave trade, those were our forefathers. But this is the part they don't want you to know. Yeah, and Israel says same here. Yeah, so when you check that and your lineage goes back up into there, then chances are you are descended from some of those kings that were up there. And like I pointed out before, they like to use the word kangs as a pejorative because they know this history. You know, they'll try to make fun of it, but, you know, yeah, how are you going to try to make fun of me just because I got royal lineage, right? But that's what they'll do. But anyway, a lot of times they know this history, but they'll try to hide it. In the B-Dub and the rest of them, they're so ignorant because they don't teach their children this history because they don't know themselves, that they just absorb these false narratives that as if black men never did anything, or that we just came from, you know, like I said, naked savages somewhere. But I'm going to show you guys better than I can tell you a few of these things. And like I said, I'm doing this for a reason. So just sit tight, and I'm going to go into some of this history. And just to kind of corroborate what I just said, because, you know, a lot of our people are so non-integral and so, you know, self-hating that they don't believe much unless it comes out of the mouth of the white man. So I'm going to go ahead and play this clip of a white man saying similar, you know, something that I just said right here. But let's go ahead and get this.
Some of my recent work, if you read the hybrid very attentively.
Now, if you pay attention and you listen to some of these guys, they'll let you know what the actual facts is. And if you go and look at the books that were printed before 1850, then they all talk about not just the black Moors that were up there, but the black Jews that were up in the Iberian Peninsula. And when you hear the word Sephardic Jews, that just means the Spanish Jews or the Portuguese Jews, which were all black. Not to be confused with the Ashkenazi, which are the ones that are primarily get all the airtime and all of that. And every once in a while they'll talk about the Egyptian, I'm sorry, not the Egyptian, but the Ethiopian, quote, Jews and all that. But the ones that we're descended from were the ones that this white man is going to start talking about right there. Yeah, and then Israel says, I got a bit of Portuguese and Spain in my DNA. Yeah, and remember, Israel, you cannot be comparing it to the current populations. When you take those tests, make sure that it's from, I think it's like Ancestry, not Ancestry.com, but one of those, like the ones that go into the ancient DNA, like they excavate the old graves of people. And then you'll notice that you have a lineage from people that were there that predated. Because to be honest, Europe itself was black. A lot of people are just starting to understand that as well. And it wasn't until just the past, I think 3,000 years that Europe actually became white because of people who came from the Caucasus Mountains and started spreading over. But that, that should be well documented and people should know that. But when you start seeing those tests, it'll let you know that your lineage goes back to that location, because there were when after the AD 70, when that temple was destroyed and the Romans went in and a lot of those black Jews start scattering, they went across to that Iberian Peninsula as well. A lot of people forget that. And then they also scattered to the east, and that's why you have the Limba, which I think I have a little clip on them I'm going to play too. But again, guys, I'm going somewhere with this, so I'm glad you guys are soaking up this game, because this is very important. You may not hear this anywhere else, especially within the context of how I'm saying it. But check this out right here.
You'll have to go to the footnotes. You will see there's got a lot of evidence produced for black Jewish communities in different parts of West Africa, which are not sort of based upon a particular reading of tribal history, let's put it like that.
Yeah, so he's right now admitting something that a lot of us who's researched this, we know to be fact, is that you already had those, quote, Jewish communities in West Africa. In fact, I have a book by Stephen Jacobs and Moses Farrar. It's a very good read. It's called The Hebrew Heritage of Black Africa. And you guys can look that up. I got it right here on my bookshelf. And that's what he's referring to. But the other thing I want you to pay attention to is what he's going to say about the Iberian Peninsula. So let's get it.
But are based on fairly hard historical fact. And this hard historical fact is...
Yeah, you got it, Israel. He said, yes, you're talking about mytrueancestry.com. I got a close match of an African Muslim buried in Italy. The Moors had reach even there. Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah, you got it. Yeah, that's the one I'm referring to, because those are the best tests, because it predates the current population. Because if you just do a modern DNA test, you're not going to get a match, because you're not related to the current population, because your ancestors were there that predated them. So just like I said, if you go back, if you're testing the remains of people that were buried specifically from the year 711 to 1492, that's when the black Jews and the Moors were running that area, and we have a direct lineage from them people. And those were the ones that got swept up into the Spanish Inquisitions, and the ones that got put on those ships during the Middle Passage and all of that, because they were first given the choice, either you convert or you have to leave, and a lot of them chose to leave, and they left and went to Africa. And the other reason why you know that was us is because this, if you look at those books that were written between, the early 1800s, they are clearly talking about this happening to the quote Jews, and it was an open knowledge that they were all black. And my question is, why don't the Ashkenazis, why don't they identify with that history? Because it wasn't them. It was definitely everything that happened to those people is what happened to us. So, I mean, it don't take much if you know your history to be able to connect these dots. But let's get it.
It's the expulsion of the Jews from Spain and from Portugal at the end of the 15th century.
So that's what he's just talking about. You heard what he just said, right? I'm going to run it back real quick. You see how he started out talking about the Jews that were the Jews that were on the west coast of Africa, right? And now he's talking about basically what I just said when it came to the ones that were expelled from the Iberian Peninsula, which is Spain and Portugal. And he's talking about how that when they were expelled, they went down into Africa, and those were our forefathers. But let's go.
From Portugal at the end of the 15th century.
Yeah, that was at the end of the 15th century. And again, this is the type of information that the B-Dub and all the rest of them need to be telling their children. But because they're ignorant and they believe in the white racist version of history, which says that you were somewhere with a bone in your nose, running around naked, and you didn't have any culture, that's what they teach. And you will literally see these goofy broads making commentary, both verbally and writing comments, speaking like that. And that's because they're ignorant, and that ties into their self-hatred. And then they got the nerve to wonder why black boys don't have a good reading level, is because they don't want to keep hearing about how much of a loser they were in history, how much of a slave they were, how much they did not have a culture, and how the white man did everything. And they can't identify with history. They can't identify with any of this stuff. Their mother's not teaching them anything. They don't have fathers in their lives because their mother could not pick a dick right. So that's the reason why these boys are failing. And those of us who come from a good family, like myself, who had a mother who taught me things early, who took me to the library, took me to museums, got a library card when I was like 7, 8 years old, spending hours in the library reading, having test scores coming back 7th grade. I'm reading at a 11th, 12th grade level. Even though I tell the story, against my parents' wishes, I was still goofing off. Because I did enough to keep them off my back, but when I got to school, I was doing a bunch of BS. And so, like I told you, I had a guy pull me to the side one time, a substitute teacher, but I still was capable. I just didn't want to do it at the time. Nowadays, these boys don't even have the capability because they didn't come from a mother who was giving them the opportunity to learn their real heritage. And that ties into everything we're going to be talking about as far as this self-hate. But let's get a little bit more of this. And what Israel says, he says, Tudor Parfait also has an understudy named Edith Bruder who wrote good books about Jews in West Africa. Oh, yeah, man, it's really a criminal negligence that a lot of our people don't know this history. And again, the women are supposed to be the teachers of the children and passing down this heritage. And it's a damn shame. You got to come over and listen to the Knight Riders Squadcast to tune in to get this type of knowledge, because they're not going to seek it out on their own, but they can tell you what the hell Kim Kardashian did last night. It's ridiculous, but let's go.
Century, subsequent to which a lot of Jews settled, first of all, in northwest Africa.
And when he's saying Jews, he's talking about black people. Okay, let's be very clear. Just like when you see those books that were published back in the mid or before the 1850s, they all were using Jews and black interchangeably, just like with Moors. Because people would be trying to say, oh, the Moors were Arabs. No, they wasn't. It's very well documented that Moors were black, and when they were using the term war and black, it was interchangeable. And the same thing went for the Jews at that time, the ones that were in the Iberian Peninsula, which is, as I said, Spain and Portugal, the ones that this white man is talking about. When he's talking about Jews, he's talking about the ones that were black, that are our direct ancestors that went down when they were kicked out of Europe after dominating for those 700 years. That's what happened. And another thing I pointed out, I thought about earlier, I said, well, people act like the way things are now is just kind of the way it's always been. But if you were to be walking around Europe, particularly in, say, Spain or Portugal, say around circa 711 through 1492, or just say you popped up there in, I don't know, 720, right? The year AD 720. You would think that black people were superior because everything that was built by black people. All of the leaders, the kings and everything were black. So just like now you go into America and it's all ran by white folks, then you think, oh, well, they're running everything. They're superior and all this, right? But it just depends on what point in history you talk about. And again, people don't understand how these dynamics work, so they get it twisted and they start regurgitating stereotypes. Let's get some more.
Places like Senegal, in the islands, which I'm sure you know about, Saint Tomé and Principe.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with that as well. Let's go.
Principally. And then less known along the coast of Guinea, so that in the middle of the 16th century, 1560 to be precise, the Portuguese Archbishop of Goa in India proclaimed that.
Now you notice there are so many of the honest white scholars, they're going to tell you this history. So for all them goofy Sambo type Negroes, and even the name Negro, and I'm sure you know this, Israel, came from a specific guy who was a ruler up in Portugal called Yaya, and he changed his name, and he was said to have been descended from King David. And he was the one that changed his name because he was, after the Moors conquered, I think, one of the cities, because, you know, when they first came up there, when they started taking over, it was the Moors and the Jews, and he was part of that battle, and he was such a great warrior that he was gifted a particular, I think, 2 castles or something. And then he changed his name, and he was one of the first ones who start calling himself Negro. So when they say in Spanish that the word Negro means black, well, that came from this particular man named Yaya, and he changed his name to Negro, and he became a family dynasty, and that's where we got the name Negro. A lot of people don't know that. Now, when I use it in a funny way to, you know, talk about you Negroes, but I understand the real history. So in other words, I'm not really insulting you. I'm just kind of forcibly reminding you of who you are. But the name Negro comes from that word in Hebrew, which is neged or nagid, which means prince, right? But then they changed it and it's become bastardized, and then later it became, you know, the N word and all that kind of stuff. But you got to know this history, because if you don't, then you start thinking like the Klan Keishas of the world. And that's why I want you guys over here at the Knight Riders to be armed with this knowledge. And again, I'm only doing this part of the broadcast so that you guys can know why things are the way they are and how off and ridiculous it is for a lot of these women to be saying and doing the things that they're doing. And Israel says, yes, Yahya, I've been Yahya. Yeah, that was his name before he changed it. But yeah, Israel is very well studied, so he knows what I'm talking about. Yeah, that was his original name. It was Yahya bin Yah. And then he changed it to Negro. He adopted the name Negro, and that became the family name. And then everybody, you know, and they were known as the Negroes. Just like if you would have showed up in Portugal and say, because I think he started ruling around the 1500s. I forget the exact year, but if you just showed up and say, well, yeah, we're the Negroes. He had a whole village, you know, a little town, you know, that they were ruling in. And it was like that, you know, like the House of Windsor and the House of whatever. It's like the House of Negro. And that was his house, his royal house. And so, yeah. And then when the Spanish or when they started taking back over in the late or the early 15th century, they started pushing them out. And then that's when they were trying to convert people back and getting people to try to give up their natural culture. And that's why a lot of our people fled, and they went down into Africa, and that's when they got kind of, and he had, what's his name, King Emmanuel, he put out an ordinance that they had to be converted even in those lands outside of Spain and Portugal, down in Guinea and all of that. And then you start getting into the Lacados and all that stuff. But anyway, I don't want to go too deep into that. But I'm showing you that, guys, this video to let you know that this is verified information, and you have a whole white man right here basically corroborating what I'm saying. But let's get a little bit more. This video is almost done, but I just had to put it into perspective.
That Judaism is a kind of horrible illness which has killed millions of people throughout history, and
so that's what they were saying, because remember, they're tying it into they're calling it Judaism, but really it's just the Hebrew belief system that a lot of our people believe that, you know, that they were the chosen people and all of that. And you had some of those guys who were trying to convert them because they said, well, this was a bad thing, and that's why you had the Inquisitions. But let's go.
Result of being Jewish was to be covered in shame, to fail in everything, even among the black Jews of Guinea. So,
yeah, but anyway, he goes on to kind of break it down. But I just wanted you guys to see this, because this right here is letting you know the exalted position that we were in and how it ended up the way it did. And that's the reason why I'm just going to give you a little bit more of this before we get into some of this other stuff we're going to have to deal with. But yeah, sometimes you just got to remind people because they don't understand this stuff. Yeah, let me give you this one right here. Hold on. Because right now, you just have to understand how, you know, we developed certain things and how that knowledge was essentially used against us. And I'm going to show you some of that history with this one right here. Hold on. Because this is the type of stuff we were doing up there at the time. But watch this.
In the dark pages of history, few events have scarred humanity as deeply.
Oh, you know what? That's about the Inquisition, but I'm going to show, I have another one first. Because first I'm going to show you more of what we were actually doing up there. We're doing stuff like this because they, you know, apparently the people who were up there couldn't even handle basic hygiene, but we had to teach them certain things like this.
And Europe was drowning in filth. Europe was drowning in filth, disease, and ignorance until African Muslims saved them. Europe was in the Dark Ages. Literally, no sanitation, no education, no medicine. Then the Moors came. These black Muslim scholars from North Africa brought science, math, medicine, engineering, and even the concept of bathing. That's right, they had to teach Europeans how to wash themselves. The Moors ruled Spain for...
And remember, when they talking about the Moors, it wasn't just them, it was also the Hebrews. I just want you to remember that, but for some reason they always like to kind of keep that under wraps, even though like that white man I just showed you, they know the history, but they'll admit that there were Moors up there because they can kind of make it seem like those were kind of like the Arab, you know, the Arab, they want plausible deniability to be able to say, okay, well, these were the Arabs. No, they were all black. And alongside them ruling were also those black Hebrews as well. So I just want you to keep that in mind, even when you see a video like this, which is telling the truth, but they leave out that part as well. But let's go.
For 700 years, building universities, libraries, and surgical centers while Europeans were still living in filth. But after they were kicked out, Europe stole their knowledge and erased them from history.
Okay, so that's a key point that I want you to harp on, because the knowledge and everything, the building and everything that we did, it basically was used against us and we were taken out of history. So that's a whole different mindset for humanity at this point. And now you have, in current times, people thinking that specifically black men didn't do anything when essentially we did everything. So, but let's go.
The Moors didn't just visit, they built modern Europe, and they don't want you to know it.
Yeah. So again, we're going some with this, guys. So we're gonna have to walk you through some of this history before we get into some of the things. So that's why I just want to let you remember where we started from. But this is only a particular history. We can go back further, but I'm going at this particular point because it's very key to when we make this shift to talk about how the Klan Keisha was developed. It's this part is very important. So that's the reason why I'm picking it up around the time that the Moors and the black Jews were up in Spain and Europe, because that was a critical moment when the world shifted, and then our image as black men started to change. That's when they tried to erase us from history, and when they tried to just create this narrative that we were just cursed to be slaves and all this type of stuff. That's when that all started changing, and when they started changing books and rewriting history, whitewashing paintings and all that kind of stuff. Speaking of which, this was some of the blacks in art in Europe that they don't want you to see as well. So when you see pictures like this shows you that these people had very high rank in esteem. And just like when you saw depictions of gods and all that, they were literally all black. And that was the definition of how black people were viewed. And again, this was basically a mind game that was done on the world, where you took a group of people who were seen as rulers and people in power and builders and everything. And then it took centuries to happen, but it's just like a complete 180, right? And Israel says, glad tune in. I'm a big history nerd. Yeah. Yeah, Israel. That's why I wanted to make sure I still did this broadcast, because it's very important. Because we're going to get into the gory details of the Klan Keishas, but you know how we do over here. We want to put things into their proper perspective. And you got to remember this part of the story before we get into the graphic details. But let's get some more. And remember, some of these people that they're depicting were those people that I mentioned you before. Not just the Moors, but the black Jews as well. And these were how the Europeans themselves were depicting them. And this right here was taken. This is during Roman times right here. It's like he's like they threw one of the Hebrews in the Colosseum, because you remember that's what the Romans used to do when they didn't convert to their state religion. Then they would take the Jews and put them in the Colosseum, and this is a depiction of that. But let's go. Oh yeah, and over in Russia, they still have all of this as well. You see where it says Prophet Daniel, and that was in the 1700s. That's from Russia. So all across Europe, this is how they were depicting biblical figures. It was an open thing. Oh yeah, and then Israel says this is even mentioned in the Stars series called The Spanish Princess. Moors and Jews were depicted as black, surprisingly. Yeah. Sometimes they'll slip it in, but you know what? You should also look at that book, the Moors and Jews of Spain, by Joseph Kroskoff. He goes into all of that, man. This is just open information, but it's a damn shame how ignorant people are. And again, we got to circle back to the B-Dub, because they're the ones that are supposed to be teaching their children this history. You guys should not have to tune into the Knight Riders Squadcast in the middle of the night to get this history. This should be standard procedure with black children being taught in their households. But what are the B-Dubs teaching them? But let's go. But anyway, you get the point. It's just more, it goes on and on about showing this period of time where to be black was associated with all of that royalty and regalness. And even, and what's so crazy is that these women who have so much self-hate, they don't even want to exalt this history, because even, you know, with them, their image was exalted as well, just like with the Black Madonnas and all of these different depictions of the black women who were seen as something exalted. And even the French, when they were going to dedicate the Statue of Liberty, they made that it was supposed to be a black woman. But because of, the U.S. wasn't ready for that, so they changed it into what you see today. But again, this is all history that goes into the reason why the people are so ignorant and why there's so much self-hate. But yeah, let's get some more of this, these examples right here. Let me show you something. And check this out.
Moors, a group of Muslim North Africans, played a crucial role in shaping European history, particularly through their rule in Spain, Al-Andalus, from 711 to 1492. Their contributions spanned various fields, leaving a lasting legacy across Europe. The Moors introduced stunning architectural styles, blending Islamic, Christian, and Jewish elements.
Okay, now you heard that, right? So how did they blend Jewish elements if there were no black Jews there? So again, they don't like to talk about it, but you pay attention, especially if you've read some of those older books, you will know it was an open thing. It was not a hidden thing. They all knew it wasn't just the black Moors that were up there. It was the black Jews as well. And he just kind of said it right there. Let's go.
And Jewish elements. Iconic examples include the Alhambra in Granada.
Okay, now earlier I mentioned Granada. Now, if you do one of the tests like I mentioned, then you are going to possibly see that you have a lineage back in the Granada, because that was one of the cities that some of our direct ancestors ruled. The city of Granada. That was a black enclave, right? And they were black Hebrews, but let's go.
And the Great Mosque of Cordoba, with intricate mosaics.
And that was built by black people, though, so.
Arches and courtyards that influenced European architecture, particularly in the Gothic and Renaissance periods.
Yep.
The Moors were instrumental in preserving and advancing knowledge from ancient civilizations like Greece and Rome. They established universities and libraries, translating key texts into Arabic and later Latin. Their advancements in medicine, astronomy, mathematics, introducing algebra, and chemistry were shared with the rest of Europe through cultural exchange, greatly impacting the...
So again, guys, we want you to juxtapose this knowledge that I'm giving you right now to the ignorance that you're going to see later and that you see today. And again, it's just going to totally underscore how degenerate the Klan Keishas are, because everything that you're seeing right now is what's supposed to be taught to the black child, and that would help them develop that self-esteem so that they don't have the self-hatred to want to be something else. If you knew this history as a child growing up, wouldn't that be something that would raise your esteem? Wouldn't you be happy to be a part of a group that had this much power, this much rulership? But if you've been taught that you were just somewhere as a slave on a plantation, or that you were running around Africa naked and so a white man had to come and give you white Jesus for you to be saved, then, you know what I'm saying, you're going to have low self-esteem. And that's part of the reason why the Klan Keishas are the way they are, because they believe that narrative and they teach it to their children. Huh? Well, let's go.
European Renaissance. The Moors introduced advanced agricultural techniques, such as irrigation, crop rotation, and new crops like rice, citrus fruits, and sugar cane. These innovations improved food production across Spain and eventually spread to other parts of Europe.
Yeah, and what Israel said, he said, I was told by a brother from the Netherlands that a Moroccan woman told him that she always knew the Jews were black. Morocco was one of the safe havens for them after they got kicked out. Yeah, exactly. That's real history. And again, they will admit it. If you know already, then they'll admit it. Because I've had conversations like that. When they know that you know, oh, they don't mind telling you. Oh, yeah, we know, yeah. Yeah, and those are real facts what that woman said. Because like I said, that is why we ended up in the Iberian Peninsula as well. Because that was a safe haven. Because when we, when we were getting pushed out of the Iberian Peninsula, we were going up there, but we didn't stay there. We went down into Africa. So this is real. This is documented. So again, let's go.
Contributing to economic and population.
So when you see guys like this who are over there building, whether they were Moorish or whether they were Hebrew, a lot of us are descended from these guys. And that's why a lot of us have certain attributes and stuff. Like some of us are still builders. We got knowledge and stuff. That's like me breaking down all this stuff. Because I got a royal lineage somewhere. One of my ancestors were one of these guys. It's all in the family, right? So that's what they don't understand. That's the reason why people can't challenge this type of knowledge, because this is coming from way back. And just like the Moors and the Jews had to be up there teaching the ignorant Europeans at that point, we still doing that work today. In spite of everything that happened, we still are the ones that have to raise the consciousness and letting things go into its proper perspective, because everything's been whitewashed to the point where you got people, particularly Negroes, who don't know this stuff and they ingest what they've been told and they have this self-hatred. And that's the problem. But let's get it.
Growth. Moorish scholars such as Averroes, Ibn Rushd, and Maimonides, a Jewish philosopher in Moorish Spain,
and remember, when they say Jewish, they're talking about the black ones.
The intellectual life of Europe. Their works on Aristotle, logic, and metaphysics were later studied by European scholars, influencing Christian theologians like Thomas Aquinas.
So everything that they got is from us. And just like today, you can see it in contemporary times. You see all of these arts that black men developed, such as jazz. Israel, you were on the panel with me when we went over this. All the black art forms that were developed musically, hip hop, rock, jazz, blues. And then nowadays, who do you see that is dominating those particular genres, particularly jazz, rock, and all the rest of them? Is white men, because what they'll do is they study us. They've been doing this for centuries. And we're going to go into how it all switched, because some people might think, well, since y'all ran everything, how did y'all lose it? Okay, we're going to get into that, because I might have to talk about that briefly. And then we're going to get into, how the B-dub start switching. But we're going to get into it. So, like I said, just sit tight.
And shaping European philosophy. Al-Andalus, under Moorish rule, was known for its relative religious tolerance, allowing Muslims, Christians, and Jews to coexist and contribute to society.
And just for the record, the Moors or the Muslims that were there were the black Moors, and the Jews were the black Jews, and the Christians were like the native Spanish that were there, because those were primarily the Christians, because that was their thing, because the Islam and the Hebrew faith was primarily dominated by the black men, but the new religion of Christianity, that was the white man's religion. But anyway, let's go.
This multicultural environment fostered an exchange of ideas, enhancing the intellectual...
And you got these exoticals talking about multiculturalism. Well, the black men were the first multiculturalists. We were the first ones that took culture and made it universal, sharing our knowledge and sharing our technology at the time, and building practices. And that's what created multiculturalism, because they'll have this narrative that, okay, if you're monocultural as a black person, then somehow you're ignorant to other cultures, when some of us know way more about other cultures than a lot of these people. And it was our forefathers who went around the world, not colonizing, but raising the consciousness and the abilities of humans all over the world. And that's our true legacy. And again, I'm just doubling down on the fact that this information needs to be known as a contrast to the self-hatred of the B-dub, or as we call it, the Klan Keisha. All of this knowledge that I'm showing you right now is what they don't teach their children, because again, they don't know. They've adopted the fairy tale of white supremacy, and they think that the white man did everything throughout history. So that's the reason why I'm just taking you through this before we go into that ignorance a little bit later. But let's go.
And cultural growth of the region. The Moors' contributions laid the groundwork for Europe's intellectual awakening, which culminated in the Renaissance, and their influence can still be seen today in European culture, science, and architecture.
And the thanks we got was for them to turn it against us because, again, this didn't happen overnight. It took hundreds of years. And I'm going to show you quickly, like, this process. But that's what happened, because you will have people talking about, well, you guys got conquered. You got conquered. No, it wasn't that simple. In fact, you didn't get, like, a standing army of Europeans going in conquering us, or even Arabs. It was internal conflict. There were these kingdoms that were against each other. Unfortunately, there was like a lot of internal beefs that were going on, and that's kind of what happened over time. But I'm going to show you some of that a little bit later. But right now, I'm just showing you how dominant we were, and that's going to kind of just lay the groundwork to how things ended up. But hold on one moment. I want to show you this one right here, because this one kind of goes over the point I just made. Let me see where it's at. Hold on. Oh, yeah. Let me play this one.
There is zero historical evidence that the term Moor was ever used interchangeably to describe either Arabs or Muslims. A Moor could also be a nobleman or even a Christian. Then what did it mean? Author Dave McRitchie wrote in response, any Latin dictionary, any old one at least, will tell you that the term Moros is a Moor, a blackamoor, or a tawny Moor. And Shakespeare uses the word Moor as a synonym for Negro. Jameson in his Scottish dictionary says of the word Moriave, defined him as black, swarthy, resembling a Moor. From Johnson's, and it says Moor equals a Negro. In fact, you can just take a trip to your local museums to see statues like this, clearly labelled like this. St. Maurice, neither Arab nor Muslim. Simonetta de Collavecchio, the Moorish nobles on the Wildmen tapestry, the half-Moor Alessandro de Medici, and even the Moors on the flag of Corsica and Sardinia.
Okay, now I want to point out something too. When it says like this half Moor right here, this was another reason why a lot of the power started to wane, because unlike a lot of like how the white man did with the one drop rule, the black men who were dominating Europe during this time, they would take a son like this who was half black, half Spanish or whatever. They would give them the full rights of being their children. They didn't enslave them or anything like that. What they would do is give them the opportunity to benefit. And if he went and got a white woman, for example, then that child will be white. And then so forth. We're going to talk about that a little later, something called bracciamento. And so a lot of times that's how a lot of these black men that were dominating these particular areas, they would start gradually losing power, because just like what men do when we go, when you conquer, you always take the women, right? So, but the difference between what the black man did and the white man when he started dominating was that he would enslave his own children, or at the very least, he would marginalize them and say that they were, he would create the one drop rule and he would disown them and then create this narrative as if they were black, when in reality they were his children. So I just wanted to point that out, since he showed this depiction of this half Moor, half Spaniard, and that's kind of part of that history as well, as far as how the Moors and the Hebrews as well started being pushed further down from 711 to 1492, when they started losing their grip on the Iberian Peninsula. But let's get a little bit more. I think this one's almost done, but let's go.
On the flag of Corsica and Sardinia, you will note that these are all black people who are not necessarily Muslim, Arab.
Yeah, so I want to hit you with that, but here's another one just to show you this. And again, just sit tight. We're going to get into the topic. This is part of the topic, but I gotta lay the foundation. So we got a few more videos I want you to see, then we're going to get into it.
You may have heard of them, maybe you haven't, but the word Moor simply means black. It was a title that was given to them because of their dark skin. Many people believe that Moor also means Muslim, but the truth is there were many different types of Moors. There were Muslim Moors, there were Jewish Moors, Christian Moors, and some.
Okay, so again, you guys keep bringing theme, right? More just means black, and you have people that were of different belief systems that just happen to be the ones that they like to depict the most are the Muslims, but they don't like to talk about the Jewish ones because that upsets the apple cart. A lot of people get uncomfortable with that history. But let's get a little bit more.
Some that practice a Kemetic African faith. As a result of the Roman civilization collapse.
Yeah, Israel says, yeah, the detractors are being educated right now. Oh, yeah, Israel, you know how we do. That's the reason why I'm doing this, because when I started hitting them with that heavy work a little bit later, this is all going to make sense because I'm going to show you just how ignorant they are. But yeah, they can get educated. You know, like I said, I'll be their digital daddy and show them how this thing really is set up. But yeah, I don't mind doing it. This is easy work, but let's go.
Europe fell into a dark age for 500 years. By 711 AD, the Moors made their way into Spain, crossing from Africa to the Iberian Peninsula. After the invasion in 711, Moors...
And look, you can see how close it is, right? Because you got North Africa right here, and you got Spain and Portugal right there. So it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody, that this all happened. But, you always got a lot of people who are ignorant. And that's what we're going to be talking about. But let's go.
Moors arrived, soon dominating Europe. For 700 years, the Africans who dominated Spain and much of southwest Europe brought a level of civilization.
He says, see how they left once I mentioned that? Yeah, you know what, man? The people coming and going, I don't mind. But yeah, they're going to get this work regardless, because what we're doing over here is necessary. Because there's too much ignorance out there. But again, they're going to learn today or tonight. Let's go.
That had not been seen since the ancient Greeks, who were students of North Africans, ruled Europe. Irrigation systems constructed by Moorish engineers. They also created paved roads and public restrooms. Education thrived in Moorish Spain, including 17 universities, 800 schools, several colleges, and public libraries and bookstores containing 700,000 manuscripts. The Moors during this time were also heavy translators of ancient Kemetic texts and scientific texts. This was also especially important considering the fact that 99% of the population were illiterate, including the king, who couldn't.
So the Europeans, like being depicted right here, they couldn't even read. That's why you hear those tales about them not being able to read. Even the kings of Europe couldn't read, but the Moors could, and they were the ones that were translating these scripts. So people are ignorant, and you know this too, Israel, when people say, well, the white man wrote the Bible. Well, how did they write it when a lot of them couldn't even read? It was really the black men that were doing the translations for a lot of these ancient scripts. But let's go.
Not read or write during this time. During the time of translating texts, the Moors had translated the works of the Greeks, not knowing that they were actually translating the works of their own ancestors that the Greeks had misunderstood.
So they always like to, in the Western world, they like to just give the Greeks credit for all this philosophy and wisdom and all this, when in reality, they didn't even understand a lot of the wisdom that they were getting from Kemet, and the Moors were the ones that were translating this information that even the Greeks didn't even know. So that's pretty interesting, but let's go.
The Moors were also aware that the world was round and not flat. They took their knowledge of geography and created maps that showed all land and sea routes.
And that's another one that's mixed. He was Pedro Alonso Nino, but a lot of this history is hidden, but they were the ones circumnavigating the earth and doing all of this type of stuff. These the actual Moors, and they taught their sons that they would have with these different women, like this guy. They would teach them the same thing. But let's go.
Their location in relation to the latitude and longitude. It is no surprise that when Christopher Columbus decided to explore the world, on his flag in the city of Cordova, The Moors constructed splendid palaces with manicured lawns,
Yes.
with heavily decorated hallways.
Yeah, so this is some of the stuff that they built as well. But again, you know, this is just stuff that these people don't want to accept. But they're going to have to get this work. Oh, and just to kind of answer the question in terms of how everything fell, I'm going to let some of the Grand Masters briefly tell you guys how it was all lost, because it begs the question of, okay, well, you guys ran everything. What happened? Okay, well, I'm going to let the legendary Chancellor Williams and Dr. Henry Clark, John Henry Clark, that is, I'm going to let them briefly tell you about why things ended up where black men who have been so dominant for all these centuries, thousands of years really, but how it all started to fall apart, which is kind of a natural thing. But I'm going to let them tell you in these short clips about what happened. So I'm going to start with Chancellor Williams. He even wrote the book called The Destruction of Black Civilization. I have that book.
Reject the idea of being called an Afro-American.
Dr. Williams, if all of the things you say are true, if Africans had such advanced civilizations, hundreds of kings and one African kings in one kingdom before Jesus Christ was born, how did Africans worldwide and Afro-Americans get in the shape they're in? How did these great kingdoms, this great civilization, fall to civilizations that didn't come along until thousands of years after theirs were already established?
Now he asked a good question. This is Tony Brown's journal. He used to make some good shows back in the day. That's where this show was from. But you know, R.I.P. to Chancellor Williams and to Dr. John Henry Clark. But he's gonna answer this question because that's what people want to know. Because once they tried to, you know, they deny that we actually have this history. But then once they accept it, oh well, how come y'all lost it? Well, it wasn't just about being lost overnight. This took hundreds of years, right? But I'm gonna let them break it down.
How did Africans worldwide and Afro-Americans get in the shape they're in? How did these great kingdoms, this great civilization, fall to civilizations that didn't come along until thousands of years after theirs were already established?
They built cities and so forth and so forth. And so this is why you had this great system of nations building becoming so mighty. Now, why did they fall? They fell when this began to decline internally, and when the external forces, over centuries of effort,
right,
finally gained the day. These nations had laws, strict laws, barring foreigners from coming to the interior. Then the same system of gradually settling around the borders, that is foreign traders, and supposed to be traders, but most of them were geographers and others.
Right, so he's making a very important point because he's showing that it wasn't just like white men or something coming in conquering everything. They came in like they were traders and stuff, right? Because like you said, there were borders that were set up to where they could, you know, during these kingdoms where they couldn't just come in like that. They had to show the requisite amount of respect and say, oh, well, we just want to trade with you, right? But this happened over centuries. So that's kind of what he's breaking down. So for these people that like to say, well, you guys got conquered and that's the reason why you became slaves. No. It wasn't that simple. We had some of the most powerful empires on the planet. These were not just conquered overnight. This took hundreds of years. But I'm going to let them break down some more.
Then the foreign would establish little trading posts, just ask for permission to establish trading posts on the border. We don't want to come in. We don't come in. We just want to do business with you. We want to sell you what we have. We want to buy some of what you have. Well, the Africans are great traders, always great traders. So that was one of the weaknesses. they allowed them to settle along the borders, for one thing. The second thing that happened, and this went on, as I point out in the destruction, for several thousand years before the certain countries were finally taken. And when they were taken, like Egypt, look how many times Egypt was taken and retaken.
You say blacks gave up Egypt. Are you saying the Egyptians were black?
Of course the Egyptians were black. The name comes from the name itself, has an origin in the name of a black king.
Yeah, so he put it into perspective like that, and I do recommend his book, The Destruction of Black Civilization. He did an excellent job of breaking that down. And then we're going to get now the other legendary scholar, John Henry Clark. So we got a brief video from him as well. So let's go.
Black history is in dispute in some quarters. A man named J.A. Rogers, who was laughed at 20, 30 years ago, not taken seriously at all, is being taken very seriously these days. A new book called Great Black Men of Color has been edited by our guest tonight, Professor John Henry Clark. Professor Clark, there are some rather startling, to put it mildly, revelations made in the book about certain presumed facts of history that I'm certain will not stick with the general white historical community.
Well, I'll tell you, it became almost necessary for the Europeans to whiten up a part of black history when they began to take over the world in the 15th and the 16th century. And what Rogers has done is...
Yeah, you see that? That's a very key point that Dr. Henry Clark just said there. He said it was necessary. And you notice how I gave you guys the timeline earlier. I showed you it was around that time, the 15th century, is when this started to happen. That's when they had a necessity to start whitewashing history and basically deleting whole segments of world history where we were dominant, because they knew they were bringing in or ushering in a whole new system and a whole new mentality, right? So that's the reason why that was necessary. So let me run that back real quick.
It became almost necessary for the Europeans to whiten up a part of black history when they began to take over the world in the 15th and the 16th century. And what Rogers has done is going back and taken a whole lot of the white away and showed you the original black faces of certain people in history. In this two-volume work, World's Great Men of Color, Volume 1 is devoted to the Old World, and Volume 2 is devoted to the New World. The first thing he does is to put Egypt in proper context and to show Egypt and the great personalities of ancient Egypt as black people. And it might be startling, but he reveals that Cleopatra did not look like Elizabeth Taylor and wasn't a white woman at all. And I think his book starts in Egypt with the other great characters in Egypt, Imhotep, the real father of medicine, father of architecture, builder of the step pyramids, forerunner of astronomer, a man who was accepted as a god in Europe long before the birth of Christ. Imhotep lived about 5,000 years ago. And early Europe accepted quite a few Africans as deities. Imhotep was one of them. He opens the book actually with this great African who was the world's first multi-genius.
Yeah, so it was a black man who was the world's first multi-genius. Not just a genius, but multi-genius, right? So again, guys, I definitely wanted you guys to see that so that you could understand how far or how advanced we were, but they gave you the perspective in terms of how things were lost as well. It didn't happen overnight. We weren't conquered. Nobody came in and just took everything. It took hundreds, if not thousands of years for this all to unfold. Now, we're going to fast forward to where we are. Well, no, this is what we're going to do. We're going to focus on the beginning of when things started to switch and how the Klan Keishas first started producing the children that would become Klan Keisha's kids, which are the offspring of the plantation owners, and how we're going to pull the cover off this lie that somehow it's the sons and daughters of black men who have these other women that are the problem, when in reality the combination between the self-hating Klan Keisha and the plantation owner are the ones that create a lot of this havoc. And I'm going to start out by showing you some history about how the original biracials that were common were the product of the plantation. And it wasn't black men that were getting with white women, because that was outlawed. A black man better not be caught with a white woman. We got to fast forward a bit, because as I said, I showed you the history of where we were, and we know through a process of time, such as during the Inquisitions and the transatlantic slave trade, how we lost a lot of our power and authority, and how we got stripped down, and our forefathers were then put in chains and became slaves, and later put on plantations and so forth. So we know all of that, but now we're at the point now where I want to show you how these original exoticals were produced. So let me go ahead and show you how this worked out. And to use this, I have a depiction by what I think to be a very good movie called Queen by Alex Haley. And he's talking about how these mulatto woman, I think it was one of his ancestors, is based on on a true story of her life, and is played by Halle Berry. And I don't normally think Halle Berry is that great of an actress personally, but I think she did a pretty good job in this role. And I want you to see this because it's very germane to this point that I'm going to make. But it's going to start out, and I think they got Raven Simone playing her as a youth. And and I want you to pay attention to these clips. They're short, but this is going to show you the dynamic of how the white supremacists and the Klan Keishas, how that relationship started on the plantation. And these are the children that were born from that. And then we're going to kind of fast forward throughout history how it all developed. Well, let's go.
She'll have all the advantages.
Was she all I had?
She'll still be yours. I want this Easter. It's best for her.
Now, in this movie, they got the woman that plays her mother is actually biracial herself, Jasmine Guy. And that's another thing I wanted to highlight. Jasmine Guy has a black father, but she's always been one of the types that the biracials who more identified with black. And you don't really hear about a bunch of crazy stuff going on with her. So that kind of illustrates the point that Israel made earlier, is that a lot of them, the ones that got black fathers, are the ones that are more grounded. So I just wanted to point that out as an aside, but let's get it.
Why did Master come see you every night? He my pappy?
You hush up about your pappy, Queen, before I take a switch to you. He ain't here, and that's all there is about it. You just know that your mammy love you. And your master love you too, just like it was your pappy.
You should have used the back door.
Now that's his actual wife. So you had these situations where you would have the depending on the plantation, the the owner of the plantation, depending on his mentality, he would sometimes try to incorporate his offspring with the slave women as one of his own, but she was not acknowledged. They had to still call him massa and all this type of stuff. But this scene right here is depicting how they were trying to incorporate them into their families. But it gets pretty interesting, but just pay attention to these clips.
You may go.
I still gonna see again, Missy?
Of course you will. This is another house, not another country. But you should know. This is the master's decision. I do not approve of it. But since it is to be, the child will be given every advantage. She will be trained as a lady's maid with all the necessary etiquette. So when you see her, keep your distance. I don't want to learn in your Negro ways.
I only want the best for her, Missy.
What you want has nothing to do with it. We own her. Now, say goodbye and go.
Okay, so this scene right here is showing you how they were separated, but then I'm gonna show you clips of when she got grown, and I'm gonna be pointing out some things that are very important. That's gonna lead us to the overall point of this broadcast, but so you notice the little black kids, they were teasing her. So this is the history of a lot of what was going on. That's why you have the story of the tragic mulatto, because a lot of times these children were denied their white side. In this depiction is showing that she was at least somewhat accepted, but for the most part, depending on the plantation owner, he did not accept the children. He would just put them out there with the black children, and then the black children would see the difference. They're like, "Wait a minute, where you from? You don't got no daddy." See, at least they knew who their daddies were. A lot of the black kids. So this scene right here is depicting how they would be teased, but they're gonna show that her white daddy's gonna actually step in a little bit, but I'm not sure it exactly went like that most of the time. Most of the time they were denying them. And so a lot of times these the biracial Klan Keisha's kids at that point didn't know who their father was either, but let's go.
Go on, get out of here. Get out of here, you little brats. There. Don't cry. There's no need now.
But they call me names.
Well, people called me names too when I was little. Why do they do that?
'Cause I'm different. 'Cause I look white. 'Cause I can read.
Queen. Some people wouldn't like it. They might try to hurt you.
But my pappy would have stopped us like you stopped those.
Yeah, so in that scene, they had to show that she was still being treated differently. So again, this is how it started out. This was before the Civil War, where they still had that. But after the Civil War, as you're going to see shortly, a lot of them were lost, and that created this whole narrative of the tragic mulatto, as I said earlier. But watch this. This is a little later on when she grew up. Like I said, we're going somewhere with this, so just pay attention.
For travel, promotion, good pay. It'll start at $11 per month. You'll make a great companion. Have the best of all.
And by the way, guys, because I think it's I'm not sure if the connection, because if it is staying stable for some reason. I don't know if it's dropping off, because I notice it looks like, because I'm looking at it in the monitor, sometimes it looks like it may be dragging. a little bit. I don't know how it's coming off on your end. On my viewfinder, it's good, but then when I go into YouTube, it looks like it might be dragging a little bit. So guys, let me know if you're still able to see it. Let me double check. Hopefully it ain't screwing up. Yeah, let me know if it's still good on your end. Let's go.
Is there going to be a war, Papa?
No, of course not. Why would Americans want to fight them?
You spoke to those soldiers.
It's just a lot of fuss and bother about nothing.
Jane, you can go window shopping, but be careful. Don't talk to any strange men.
Oh, everyone knows us here, Mama.
No, there are a lot of strangers in town. Queen, keep the company. You have money for a cool drink?
Yes, Mama.
Now, the way this was, that's actually her half sister. And she's supposed to be her servant. So what they would do with the biracial ones, they would, even if they tried to accept them, which was rare, they would make them the servant of the whole white child that they have. So if you had the plantation owner like him, who fathered children with a slave woman, then what he would do was try to incorporate them in the family, but he would make them servants. So if he had a whole white kid, he would take the biracial kid and make them that servant. Even though they're siblings, they were so serious about that one drop rule that they would put their own children at odds and make one of their children the servant. Well, let's get it.
How dare they? I don't mind it.
Afternoon, ladies. Sure was a pretty day.
We don't speak to strange men.
Oh, we're not strange. Just strangers. And we just want to be friends.
You pay no attention to them.
Oh, now don't be so heartless. We've come to enlist for the war, and you just might be the last pretty lady we talk to in a year. We might even die. So how about it? Come on, just one little bitty kiss for a soldier on his way to glory?
Leave me alone.
That didn't hurt a bit,
Dare
now,
you
did it?
kiss my slave? I'm surprised at you. I thought you were a Southern gentleman.
Come on, let's go. How the hell was I supposed to know the bitch looks white? Keep her off the streets. Put a sign on her or something.
Are you all right, Queen? I was scared. They're just poor white trash. I don't want no one.
Yeah, so you see how that was kind of like the standard operating procedure. A lot of the biracial products between the black women at that time and then the plantation owners, they, depending on their phenotype, they would get mistaken as white. But if it became known that they were not, then they would run into them type of problems. But let me get something else I want you to see. They're also kind of treated like this as well. Watch this.
There you go. Sure don't look like 2 pounds to me.
You've lost none of your cheek, I see. Get in your place, girl. You nothing but an ex-slave and hired help. I suppose you want this on credit?
The massacre fault, you get your money. Your price is high enough.
Are you sassing me, girl? You're accusing me of overcharging you. If the high and mighty Mr. Jackson has any complaints, you tell him to come and see me himself, not to send some bastard slave girl.
I ain't a slave no more.
You a useless nigger.
with no civil tongue in your head for decent white folk.
Hell, in the old days, she'd have been whipped.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's what you need now. Good spanking to put her in her place.
You can't touch me.
Come here, girl.
Hey, get a hold of him. Come back here. Come on, let's go.
Yeah, so that's kind of what was going on too. But watch this part. Let me show you this other clip when she's gonna have to leave the plantation. Hold on.
Where have you been?
I had some trouble, Missy.
Not half as much trouble as you've caused around here. No thought fuss, just off and away. I had to cook dinner last night and clean up in my condition. In the old days, we'd have sent the dogs after you. Now, get yourself cleaned up and get to work.
I'm sorry.
Your master's been out looking for you since daybreak, worried sick about you.
He ain't my master. He my pappy.
Yeah, so you see the dynamic between how a lot of these descendants of the dynamic between the white slave master and then the black women back then, they were still put in a position where they could not be acknowledged as his child, so they had to still call him master. But in this particular scene, it's pretty interesting because she pretty much at this point is realizing that she's not part of the family, even though genetically that's who her father is. And this is the mentality that's kind of been going out throughout history. Meanwhile, these same women today will try to make it seem like the ones that have a problem are the black biracials who have black fathers who by and large will still accept them. Meanwhile, this legacy, like what was going on during these plantations, is what is the dynamic that we see today. But let's get a little bit more. It's going to get pretty deep, so I'm just sit tight.
How dare you speak to me like that? And how dare you speak to me like that? Treat an old dog better than me. Queen do this, queen do that. Cook, wash, clean, garden, plant cotton, pick cotton from morning till night. Not even
This was a tragic mulatto right here. Let's go.
a word of thanks, or even a mention I exist. Well, I do exist, Missy. And I got a right to a little bit of love. And if I can't find it here, I gonna get it somewhere else.
So ungrateful. After everything we've done for you.
You ain't never done nothing for me. And you won't ever have to now. I gonna miss you, Mammy. 'Cause you're the only friend I get.
What, you even gonna come to say goodbye to me?
And this woman right here is actually her grandmother. See, the white woman she just got through speaking with was the wife of the guy, so she never really approved of it. This is her, according to this history, because remember, this is a depiction of Alex Haley's, I think his great-great-grandmother or somebody. This was her white grandmother, but pay attention to what she's going to tell her. And remember, guys, this is setting the stage for the tragic mulattoes and the Klan Keisha's kids that we see, because this whole legacy got started back then. So I'm just trying to keep your mind focused on where we're going with this as far as this origin story of how this all began. But let's go.
I tried to warn you.
Could have helped, Miss Sally. Could have made things a little easier.
Oh, perhaps. But it would have been the same in the end.
Why? 'Cause I'm Negro? I'm nearly white. Only got a little bit of Negro blood in me.
Now you heard what she said? Let me play that back. And then I want you to pay attention to the response.
A little bit of Negro blood in me.
So she said, because in here, I think her mother in here was depicted as a mulatto too. So she's actually like a, I don't know if you call it an octoroon or whatever. She's actually like 3/4 white, I believe. But watch what her grandmother tells her.
It's not enough to be nearly white. Even one little drop of black blood is too much.
See, there you go. That's the one drop rule right there. But that is the reason why this standard existed, because they were trying to preserve, because her father was actually somebody that was important. I think he was like a colonel or something in the military. Yeah, he said, Israel said, this episode today was fire. Yeah, it's fire, man. But like I said, it's going to get a little, it's going to get crazy in a minute, because I'm going to have to show you guys something. But yeah, I had to hit you with the academia. And I know, Israel, you really love that. And there's some other light writers that love it too. But we're going to get grimy in a minute. But again, I'm trying to let it go a little further into the broadcast before we start hitting with this crazy stuff. So anybody that's watching it, even if they don't get the live right now, because I know this ain't our normal time and it's late. But when they get to these points that I'm about to get to, it's about to get crazy. But anyway, I'm glad you liked the broadcast. But let's go. Yeah, but her grandmother told her that right there. And that's her blood grandmother. And she told her it ain't good enough. Just a one drop and you black. But that started back then. But you see why I developed the 80% rule, right? Because that's like how they had the right to try to preserve their integrity. We got the right. And again, I'm not knocking the biracials that more or less want to identify more with black. They just have to understand why it's important for those of us who are not mixed, who are actually black, to why we say the things that we say in terms of making these distinctions, because the legacy of what happened was like you see it being depicted right here. But I'm going to play a little bit more of these clips, and then we're going to get into some of this heavy work. So what I like about this movie is that it's depicting the story of how, in this one person, is the story of the tragic mulatto. Because again, this wasn't just one instance. This happened thousands, if not millions of times all throughout the South, where you had these tragic mulattoes who were just out there and they were not being fully accepted. And you see where their origin was from. This, in many cases, the racist white plantation owner and his black concubine, or the slave. Either she was raped, or maybe sometimes it was a willing situation, right? But at the end of the day, this was the original dynamic that was going on. So I want you to pay attention to that. But let's get it.
Where have you been?
Oh, you know what? I already played that one. I got it. I got another one. No, I got this other one right here. Hold on. I'm going to fast forward to when she got in touch with this other mixed woman that was running this brothel, and they don't understand how this all went down. In fact, you know what? Before I even play that next clip from this movie, I'm going to show you something right here. Hold on.
History facts you've never heard before. Lulu White was a brothel owner in New Orleans, Louisiana during the early 1900s. She became a millionaire from the fantasy of interracial sex. Most of the women at her 4-story brothel, Mahogany Hall, were light-skinned women of color and placed in 3 categories. A mulatto was a woman with 1 black parent.
Now you see how she had a whole different selection, right? Well, let's go.
A quadroon was a woman with 1 black grandparent. An octoroon was a woman with 1 black great-grandparent. The brothels were only available for white men. So when they came to town craving a little brown sugar, they would head to White's establishment. White, also known as the Queen of Octoroons, was forced
She called us the Queen of Octoroons. That's crazy. But I'm showing this clip because this was a standard thing, and I'm going to get to that point in the movie that is going to depict something like this. And this was a standard thing with a lot of those women who were, quote, passing. And many times their mothers were these slave women. Their fathers were these plantation owners. This is where that dynamic came from. So just keep all of this in mind. Let's go.
out of business when the mayor of New Orleans declared prostitution illegal on November 12th, 1917.
Okay, so you got that part, right? So let's go ahead and continue with this, because again, I'm going somewhere with this, so just sit tight. This is all going to make sense. Watch this.
Tough, isn't it? Looking white.
Ma'am, I swear.
It's all right. I understand, sister. High yellow, they call it. Dirty white be better.
You funny me.
What you think?
Yeah, she said highly yellow or dirty white.
Colored when I ain't. You see what they do? We're lucky we can choose. And who choose to be black? Black is hard. White is so much easier.
Now you see right there, that's when they had the ability to kind of blend in with that. And again, this came over time because I showed you the history of how black used to be the standard of excellence, building, power, and all of that. But by the time you get to these plantation days, you heard what she said. I'm going to run it back. And that's why a lot of these Klan Keisha's kids, they started trying to blend more with the white side because it was, quote, easier, right? Let me run that back.
So, up here in a room full of white folk can tell you I was colored when I ain't. You see what they do? We're lucky we can choose. And who choose to be black? Black is hard. White is so much easier. Beautiful. You rich? No. I have some admirers. Is you a whore? If you want to pass as white, you have to watch your speech. Nothing gives you away faster than slave talk. Never say is, you say are you.
I don't want to pass for white. I is white. I don't want to pass for black neither, because that's me too. Little miss in between, that's me. Nowhere to go. No place for home. I just a mistake.
You ain't no mistake, child. But you do smell. You smell bad.
Are you you know what I said?
A whore? I don't think so. My mammy worked for him, took care of him. But she was always on at me. Ella, she'd say, you take care of what you got, girl. It's all a girl has got. She let it get wore out. Then the Yankees came in the war. They raped me and they burned down the house. So I came here.
I'm sorry.
Oh, child, it's done. swore if white men wanted me so bad, they were gonna have to pay for it.
See, there you have it. So that's where a lot of them, that's where the first original ExTHOTicals came from. See, this is the history of the ExTHOTicals. So in this final chapter of the ExTHOTicals, we had to give you the background story to how these ExTHOTicals came about. And it was the progeny or the descendants of these white plantation owners and their slave bedwench women. Now, the original ExTHOTicals were actually the black women because they were exotic to those white men, right? But their descendants, which are the Klan Keisha's kids, the female version, because we're going to get into the men version shortly as well. This is where that whole dynamic started, because a lot of these women had been abused so much that they decided that they were just going to start selling that thing as a 304. And they set up those brothels, particularly those, and I showed you that historic clip of that woman in New Orleans who called herself, she was called the Queen of the Octoroons, and all the white men could come in there and pick in her brothel the type of flavor they wanted of these various different combinations, whether it was an octoroon, mulatto, quadroon, whatever. They had all these different categories, but let's get it.
I could never do that.
Okay, we're going to show you how it kind of unfolds in these next clips as well. Hold on. Watch this.
Good. Oh, it's easy. Just follow the music.
Alice, my dear, you're looking lovely as usual.
Thank you.
May I have the honor?
Why, George, I'd be delighted.
See, now you see why a lot of these modern, whether it be the those B-dubs that get with these old white men, or you ever seen those mixed women, like, wasn't it Russell Simmons's daughter? Remember a little while back when she got with that rich, old, crusty white man? This is a tradition. See, when they start trying to pull this bullshit about the descendants of black men who happen to get non-black women and their children, no, there's an unbroken legacy between these offspring, between the white men and the black women, who would be selling themselves to the highest bidder to these crusty old white men. And this is how it used to go down. So like I said, we're just connecting these dots, but let's get it.
You're on your own. Don't be a wallflower. Don't leave me, Alice.
Excuse me. How do, pretty? Shall we?
I'd be delighted. I never had such a time, Alice.
You must have danced with every man in the room.
Well, I had to. That first one, Morgan, kept trying to kiss on me. Are all men like that?
Most of them. What'd you think of George?
Well, he's so old, Alice.
Well, I think of him like he's my pappy. And very rich.
You ain't nothing but a whore for all your...
She said she think of him like her pappy, which is easy to do because her actual father was white in many cases, right? So that's why it was easy for them to make that transition. But let's go.
Fancy talk.
How I survive is my business, Queen. Don't call me names.
Well, it bothers me.
Well, that's a pity. Because George is a very nice man. And he has a job for you if you want it.
I won't do that sort of work.
In a flower shop.
All right, now watch this, because this right here is going to be very interesting, because I'm going to show, because she met this guy. Well, hold on, let me see if this is the clip. Hold on. Okay, now I got another one before that. Check this out right here.
Oh, you really shouldn't be alone in here with me, you know. But I won't tell anyone if you won't. And we ought to be married, aren't we? I can't remember when I've been so happy.
Don't say that. You don't know anything about me. Not really.
Let the drug do its work. It'll make you feel so good. It's like floating on a fluffy pink cloud. You're like a drug to me. I only have to look at you and all pain is gone. My love, I want you so much. I need you so much. I want you from the first moment I saw you. I can't wait until we're married. I've got to have you now. It's been so long since I had a woman. I need you. Come here.
I'll never. My pappy was Colonel Jackson, and my mammy was a slave woman. Slut!
Get what cheap negro bitches deserve.
You see how fast that went left. So as soon as they found out they had that one drop, look at Israel. He said, "Damn, yeah, it was like that, bro. It gets worse. I'm telling you, we got some heat. Just sit tight." Now watch what happens when she go back to old girl's brothel, and she basically blew her spot up. But let's go.
You told him.
How could you tell him? How could you tell him? You knew you were playing with fire. How many warnings did you need? You raped me. And you told him to save your precious virginity. Well, let me tell you what's up.
Israel said, "Clap the shit out of her." Yeah. Oh man, it gets pretty bad. I got some stuff a little bit later, but let's watch this.
Word will spread like wildfire. A couple of mulattoes in here passing as white, and then you know what's gonna happen? At the very least, George is gonna hear, and I'll lose him, all because of your precious virginity. No one got the right to take it away from me. No one. Oh, you're not special. We've all been raped. Thought you was my friend.
Damn.
You're too dangerous to be anyone's friend. You're living in a dream. You're not in the real world, and you're not Little Miss in between. You're Little Miss high and mighty. My pappy was a colonel. I lived in a mansion. My pappy loved me. Then why did he let you go? You got to get out of here. I'm gonna tell him that I kicked you out, that I found out about you, and I made you go.
No, Alice, I ain't got no one else.
Go back to your precious pappy. I can't. It's all I got. Well, there ain't nothing left for you here, not now. Go anywhere, somewhere, I don't care where. Just get as far away from here and as far away from me as possible. Alice, please, I'm begging you. Don't make me go, Alice. I'm begging you. Why did you tell him? Why? Help me.
So again, guys, this is where the story of the tragic mulatto comes from. It wasn't just some made-up thing. It was thousands, if not millions, of situations like this where these bastardized women that were the descendants of these white men who had impregnated these black women, whether it through consensual relations or through grape, and it created this whole subculture of exploitation and sexual deviancy and brothels and all this type of stuff. But again, we're going somewhere with all of this, so just sit tight.
Hungry. Please, help me.
The young man was a conjurer. I've seen him conjure up all kinds of haints out in the hollows. I do smoke wood, bring over now. Get some out there. That's it.
I need a place to sleep.
Over there.
Are you hungry? Then eat that, white bitch.
And that was crazy. So she didn't even get love from the black folks, because this was before, they were accepting the one drop rule. So they just seen her as a white woman who had got down on her luck or something. Let's go. Now watch this part right here. Hold on. Because like I said, this right here was a very good depiction of what happened and how you had this creation of this group of people who were not accepted by their white side, but eventually they became more embraced into the black society. But that scene right there depicted that initially they were not accepted because they were just considered white, right? But this is the part right here that kind of depicts the moment when she actually would get embraced. But it's pretty interesting. Let's go. So you got the Klan riding. And just a nice fun fact for you. Back then, those Klan members were actually known as, quote, Knight Riders. So you see how we flipped the name and now it means something totally different. So I just thought I'd throw that trivia out there. But some of you guys may have known that, but I don't know if you knew that I knew that. But back in the day, the Klansmen were called Knight Riders because they always rode at night. But you see what we do over here, we got it to mean something else, and we are pushing against the type of propaganda that the Klan actually wanted to project against our image. So we got that name Knight Riders, and we're doing something more positive with it. But just thought I'd throw that out there, but let's get it. So this how bad it got for the exoticals back in the day. You know, the ones who were mixed. This type of depiction happened all through the South, and and at some point they really didn't have nowhere to go. But you're gonna have to, you know, you're gonna see where she ends up shortly, because the white side pretty much rejected her, and they didn't have really much of a community of their own. So it was basically the black folk that are going to show her mercy and finally, you know, to give her a place to be accepted. But let's go.
Can't go on like this forever.
How long? It's forever. Is it a moment? A day? Year? A lifetime? Or is it forever? Forever is eternity. And this veil of tears is not eternal. Our wretched misery on this earth is but a moment in the blinking of God's eye. When that moment we call life is done, we will be taken up in glory. We will bask in the sun of God's love and glory. We will dwell in the bosom of the Lord in glory. Not for a moment, not for a year, not for a lifetime, but forever and forever and forever in glory.
Help me. Somebody. Help me. Help me. Please. A negro.
Okay, so that's pretty much a good depiction of what they were reduced to doing, because none of the quote privileges applied, and she had to try to appeal to the black side because the white side had pretty much shut her out. So this is how you started getting the infiltration of Keisha's or Klan Keisha's kids into the populace, because they didn't have anywhere else to go, and it was pretty tragic. And again, that's where that whole terminology came from when it comes to the tragic mulatto. But let's go.
Help me. Help me, God. I need love. I need food. Help me. Help me. I'm scared. Help me. Somebody help me. Help me.
And it was a lot of black women like this who were the ones that embraced them, took them in, even though it was not necessarily their particular offspring. In some cases it was, but that's how this became a thing, right? So let's get it.
It's all right. We're going to take care of it. Help me. Lord. I'm scared.
Yeah, so I want you guys to see that, because that gave you the synopsis using that depiction of how things develop. So when we talk about the fact that you have these black women who have abandoned their history, they don't realize the intricate role that they played in fostering this whole dynamic between what was going on between the quote exoticals and themselves, because they helped to bring them in and accept them. And just like the women who were impregnated by the Klan members or the plantation owners, as it were, they would raise their children as if they were black. So that was part of the issue as well. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about the dynamic between the guys, right? Because we spent a lot of time, and we're going to get back to it, but we talked about it from the standpoint of the historic mulatto. But I'm going to bring you up to speed on a more contemporary situation. Oh, you know what? Before we get into that, well, it's kind of still on the same thing, but you know about Thomas Jefferson, right? And Sally Hemings. Now, here's one of his descendants, who's a guy, still one of Keisha's kids, but it's from the male perspective, and he's on a show talking about the fact that he's descended from Thomas Jefferson. But I want you to pay attention to something pretty interesting. Watch this. I believe this clip is from the Tony Brown's Journal, and he used to have a lot of interesting shows back in the days, but let me fast forward a little bit.
One important element in your book that you just left out of that scenario, and that is that Thomas, the son of Thomas Jefferson and Sally Hemings, at 12, was sent to Jefferson's cousin because of the heat put on Jefferson by John Callender. Am I right?
Yeah, that's right.
Because John Callender was the guy who was riding Jefferson, saying a dusty Sally, and putting out the word that Jefferson was having these children by Sally Hemings. So in order to get Thomas out of the way, he was sent to the Woodson house. Am I right?
That's right. That's right. Me, as a descendant of Sally Hemings, it's offensive.
But you didn't say you as a descendant of Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah, you're right.
You did that on purpose, didn't you?
I probably didn't do it on purpose.
Now, that was a very interesting exchange, because he said he was a descendant of Sally Hemings, but Thomas Jefferson was the third president of the United States. And it's amazing that he's so disassociated from his white side, even though he's literally descended from a president. He still felt the need to be more identified with his black mother, even though Sally Hemings was, I believe, mixed herself. But it's very interesting, that psychological dynamic that has happened with the supremacist narrative, because it's allowed guys like him, who's pretty much, I mean, you can tell he's definitely, I mean, it looks like you can almost pass for a white guy, or at least, maybe a Hispanic or something. But this is the psychological dynamic that has happened to the guys as well, because we know that with the women that we call the ExTHOTicals, a lot of them, because they had been abused, they became very loose sexually. But a lot of the guys, they become extra, feminized in some cases, because they're black moms. They would be more identifying with them because they wanted to be more in tune with their black side. So it was interesting that when Tony Brown, pointed out the fact that he mentioned that he was a descendant of Sally Hemings. Normally, as a man, you want to identify with your father's side, right? Especially if they're a man of some type of esteem, which, again, he's descended from an American president, right? But he still felt the need to kind of psychologically, like he said, he didn't even do it intentionally. He pretty much just mentioned that he was a descendant of Sally Hemings. But let's go.
You're right to bring it up.
But but you didn't say you were proud to be a descendant of Thomas Jefferson. And that begs my next point. My next point is, are you proud? And is this book and bringing this forth, is this an attempt to say you're proud to be a descendant of Thomas Jefferson?
Well, I'm proud to be American.
So he can't even say it. So this is the psychological gymnastics that a lot of the Klan Keisha's kids have to deal with because they know their father's side was racist, and just because Thomas Jefferson liked to dip the old stick into some brown sugar every now and then, they knew that his side of the family, the white side, they didn't accept him. So they made it a point to just psychologically kind of remove themselves from that situation. And that's kind of what this conversation is bringing out. But let's get it.
And Thomas Jefferson gave so much to America, and he's so important to the history of America and the legacy of America. And I'm proud to have that is part of my American legacy. Whether I'm proud to be a descendant from Thomas Jefferson, I don't really think about it. What kind of person?
So I found that to be interesting. And in fact, there's another guy, because, Jefferson, he was definitely had a thing for the for a little chocolate, right? He has a lot of descendants. Here's another one of his descendants, this guy right here. So check him out in this news clip. One of Thomas Jefferson's
Back here at
descendants.
home, it is a 4th of July with a unique meaning for 78-year-old James Clark. Today is more than a holiday to him. It's a day where he thinks of his ancestors, and that's because he's a descendant of Thomas Jefferson. 900 Sign's Pal Lucero explains his connection to our founding father.
If we go over here,
History on the walls and history in his blood.
this is my grandmother.
Meet James Ira Clark's grandmother, Martha or Bessie Clark.
This is my grandmother again. She's active in the First Baptist Church of Cumminsville, of which my mother wound up being very active.
According to James, all of them are descendants of Thomas Jefferson, a founding father and third president of the United States.
Most people I mention it to, they think I'm crazy or lying.
See, Bessie, James's grandmother, was Peter Fawcett's granddaughter, and James says that Fawcett was not only one of Jefferson's slaves, but also his grandson. Fawcett moved to Ohio after Jefferson's death, becoming a reverend in Cincinnati and a conductor for the Underground Railroad.
Original slave papers that relates back from Thomas Jefferson down to, well, I guess you would say down to my son. Now that I'm older, I'm proud of my heritage.
He's got a table full of century-old documents.
It makes me feel good. That's the only thing I can hold on and keep me sane.
See, look at that. So he has to just kind of scrap together this stuff to where, I guess, the white side, they probably have estates. They probably got some type of accolades, or they're tuned into that whole heritage. But because of the one drop rule, you have a guy who's a literal blood descendant of an American president, but he's not allowed to fully embrace his legacy because of the one drop rule. You see how that works? But let's go.
Including the papers that released his ancestors from slavery.
With the original seal, I might add, this to let you know they're not fraudulent.
Reminding him that we've come a long way, even though he says growing up in the 50s with racism was not easy.
A little Christmas bag was in the mailbox, and I got it out, opened it up, and you know what it was? 2 pieces of coal.
James was a welder who retired in January after...
Damn, so he said somebody sent them some coal. That's crazy. But yeah, that's what the black side, the descendants of that union between the Klansmen and the Klan Keisha, where in this case it was American president, so I don't know, if he was a Klan member or not, I wouldn't be surprised. But that's kind of how that all went down. But this is what we're going to have to go into some pretty unfortunate territory, because I don't know if you guys are aware of this story, but this is one of the most tragic stories, I would say, in music history. And you've heard of the Debarges, right? And those of you who may not be familiar with them, but they are a singing group from the 80s. And they had some pretty good hits. Here's one.
Thinking about you for quite a while. You're on my mind every day and every night. My every thought is you. The things you do.
And back then, this is when light skin was in. So for all these guys like light skin historian and the rest of them, some of us lived through this time. Now we were young, but we remember this was quote light skin royalty back then. Even though at the time I don't think we knew that they were quote biracial, and we certainly didn't know the horrors of what their family was about, which I'm going to get into shortly. But this was in the early 80s. And like I said, they had a string of hits and they were looking like to be the next Jackson family, right? But as fate would have it, it didn't turn out so good for them. But I just wanted to kind of jog you guys' memory. I'm sure you are familiar with some of their hits, even some of you younger people. But I'm going to play a little bit more of this and we're going to get into some heavy work. Again, like I told you in the beginning, you're going to have to strap in because we got a couple of things we're going to hit before we wrap up. Let's go. Okay, so that was them, a talented family. Like I said, they had some hits. This was them doing Happier Times, you know. But let's get into some work about what actually went on with their family these many years later and some of the revelations that came out. Check this out.
The Debarges are a big family. The musical group's biggest success was the 1985 hit Rhythm of the Night, but the personal lives of the Debarges have been defined by discord. Between their struggles with addiction, crime, and drama, the Debarges have lived tragic lives. Debarge matriarch Ederline met her future husband Robert Debarge Sr. when she was just 17. Robert was 4 years older, in the army, and white, making him socially forbidden fruit. Unfortunately, he was...
And by the way, her mom, the black mom you just saw, she was a singer as well. So that's probably where they got the talent, because I don't think they got it. I don't think they got the talent from this degenerate right here, but anyway.
Also insanely jealous. He ordered her not to wear jewelry, makeup, or anything else that might attract another man. After a hasty wedding, things rapidly went downhill. Ederline said Robert tormented her physically and emotionally, even keeping her continuously pregnant. Ederline's children...
But you got some of these goofy broads out here, some of these B-dubs that they swear that the dynamic between them and the white men that they get with is always smooth sailing. It's always, you know, they have the lowest divorce rates. Well, that's probably because they're being held hostage and sometimes, but, you know, that's neither here nor there. But this story is very tragic, but watch how we, you know, you just got to pay attention to some of this stuff, but let's get it.
Had horrific memories of their father. Chico claimed that his father sexually molested his siblings. Bobby allegedly took the...
What? Yeah, you heard it right. Their father was actually molesting them. In fact, their older brother, I think Bobby, who they said was the most talented, I think he was a songwriter, he could sing, all of that. He was the one that crashed out the hardest because he was the main one their father was molesting, and he just spiraled out of control. And I think they did a movie about him, but it's crazy. But this is the dynamic that they keep trying to say is the best union between the black women and the white men. And there are tons of stories like this. This is just a prominent one because they are famous, but, oh, it gets pretty bad. But let's go.
The bulk of the abuse, but all the children suffered. Bunny, for one, went so far as to blame the siblings' professional woes and personal struggles on...
And that's, Bunny, if you've seen her back in the day, she don't look, she looked totally different. But that's what a lot of drugs and... you know, hard living will do for you, but let's get it.
The ugliness they endured as children. It's easy to spot similarities between the Debarges and the Jacksons, which would make Elle the Michael of the Debarges. As the Michael of the group, he received special treatment from Motown founder Berry Gordy, who saw Elle as a budding solo artist. According to their mother, the prospect of being split up was very painful for the close-knit siblings. However, in a 1986 interview with the LA Times, Elle remembered things a little differently, explaining that he wanted to move out of the group and give the others some creative space. Elle officially started dancing to his own drum beat after Debarge released Rhythm of the Night, but he stumbled out of the gate. Previously hailed as the creative soul of Debarge, he did zero zero writing or producing for his self-titled debut album. He blamed his lack of involvement on a failed romance, but it wasn't his only source of sadness, as he felt lonely without his siblings. El went off to also have troubles with the law. In 1986, he pleaded no contest to causing a misdemeanor disturbance after a Michigan woman accused him of attacking her. Then in 2007, he found himself in handcuffs again, this time for possible domestic violence. And in 2018, he was charged with felony vandalism after an argument led to him bashing in someone's windshield. Far too often in life, we're forced to choose between career success and personal happiness. In Janet Jackson's case, pursuing stardom meant shattering James Debarge's heart. In 1984, the two eloped, but Janet's manager wanted to cultivate the image of nasty Janet instead of an unavailable married woman. Plus, her family wasn't exactly thrilled about the union, which caught them off guard. Rumor had it that the couple were clashing like plaid and polka dots, and there were reports that James was depressed and on drugs. If they were fighting, it might have been because Janet's manager relentlessly pressured her to leave her husband. The badgering seemed to work, and the marriage was annulled.
Yeah, so I actually got a clip of him on a show. I'm going to play that. You know what? Let me just play that now. Oh, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to play them. Well, you know what? I was going to say that because I want you to learn about their brother real quick. I think this is a short clip about their older brother, the one that the father was really graping a lot. He had a tragic story as well, but let me play him.
If you grew up during the 1980s, or even if you're just a fan of the 80s, you've probably heard of the musical group Debarge. With up-tempo R&B tracks such as I Like It and All This Love, the Motown-influenced family band seemed destined to follow in the Jackson 5's footsteps. But while Debarge achieved some success, according to members of the band, they were driven apart by personal conflicts, and in 1989, after 5 albums, they broke up following the incarceration of 2 members. One of the members who was sent to jail was lead singer Bobby Debarge. In the 1970s, Bobby began performing with a number of groups alongside his brother Tommy, including Hot Ice and Switch. In 1979, after their siblings Mark, Randy, Elle, and Bunny had formed their own group, Bobby and Tommy began working with them, and in 1980, the band Debarge issued their debut album with Bobby as one of the producers. By 1982, when they just...
Now, does this seem like a well-balanced, stabilized family? So the narrative out here, and this is the reason why we had to do this, guys, is because what they're trying to do is create this false narrative that somehow the ones who are the most maladjusted, the ones who got the most problems, are the ones who are the descendants of black men, when in reality, you see stories like this more prevalent with the dynamic since the plantation days between the white men and then the black women. But anyway, we're going to play a little bit more.
Couldn't deal with all the people in the music industry. He couldn't deal with their fakeness and people ripping him off. Motown had taken all of his publishing, and they're still making money from those songs. With the immensely popular 1985 hit Rhythm of the Night, featured in the film The Last Dragon, Debarge was on the track to success even after Elle left the group and was replaced by Bobby. Any hopes of mainstream popularity were dashed in 1988, however, when Debarge family members Bobby and Chico, along with 4 other people, were arrested for drug trafficking in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Both Bobby and Chico ended up in court. The resulting convictions and prison sentences marked the end of the family musical group, and Debarge disbanded in 1989. According to UPI, the Debarge brothers conspired to smuggle more than 2 pounds of cocaine to Michigan from Los Angeles. The operation was busted when Chico and a co-conspirator were found with cocaine packages during a passenger inspection at Detroit Metropolitan Airport. Things would only get worse for Bobby. Tragically, while serving a 5-year prison sentence for drug smuggling, Bobby learned that he had HIV. Williams told Vibe that Bobby went downhill fast. Bobby's
Yeah, I hope his father didn't give it to him. But yeah, it was just the fact that he got abused in such a disgusting way by his own biological father. There's no telling what he was doing out there in California. In fact, I had some friends that lived out in California. They used to tell me they used to see this guy on Skid Row. I think it was either him or one of those Debarges. So there, it was kind of like a known thing that they would just kind of be out there like that, out there in Hollywood. Just it is tragic. But anyway, let's get it.
Last years were hell. He was separated from his wife and kids and acting paranoid toward everybody. Bobby knew his life was basically over. Bobby reportedly grew distant from his family as his health declined from the vicious disease. Effective treatment for the complications brought on by HIV/AIDS would not become widely available in time to help Bobby. Bobby managed to complete another album, It's Not Over, but he realized that his life was ending. His family placed him in hospice, and on August 16, 1995, Bobby Debarge died from AIDS-related health complications at age 39.
Yeah, so that's a horrible way to go out, and all that happened at the hands of their father. It's crazy. But this is them on this Dr. Drew show, and you know, I think I'm gonna play a little bit of his sister, and then I'm gonna play, I think his name is Chico.
When they arrived at our studio, Bunny, Randy, and James Debarge revealed that their problems were much deeper than anyone thought.
I understand there were some tough experiences and some secrets within the family that you particularly had to survive.
Well, my father was very abusive.
Physically abusive?
Physically, sexually, mentally.
Okay, now I want you to pay attention to something. You see how that white woman turned her head? Because this right here is the legacy. This has been going on for so long. This is what literally those women would do on those plantations. They would just turn away in denial, right? Look at this. Because you know about this. This is like a cultural phenomenon, but let's go.
Had to survive.
Well, my father was very abusive.
Physically abusive?
Physically, sexually.
So look at her. She just turned away in shame because that's how a lot of them women had to turn the other way on them plantations as well. Let's go.
Mentally.
Were you guys afraid of Bobby? Did I hear that?
Yes.
Why? What happened there?
Bobby abused me in every way. In every way.
Bunny's daughter, Janae, also paid us a visit with an important message for her mom.
I forgive you, Mom. I understand. I really do. I don't want you to hold yourself responsible for the past. I don't care about the past. I only care about your future.
Then came the moment of truth. Would the Debarges take my offer to enter rehab?
This is it, okay? This is life or death. I want to send you to treatment right now. Today, right this minute. And treat this and do this. So I want you to make a commitment to me that you'll go.
You have to commit.
Now. Yes?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, so you know, shout out to him. You know, if he went and got the help he needed. But again, guys, we're not trying to trivialize any of this. We're just showing you the tragic nature of that dynamic, and it gets pretty worse. As I said, we got some more. And shout out to Only Logical, because he's been on this case for a while, and we definitely got some source material from him that we need to show you, and it's kind of crazy. So watch this.
Divesting gone wrong. White man does the unthinkable to his biracial daughter. The black mom's excuse is always, the white man's racism came out of nowhere. Or the divester and other black women in her family will claim they did not see any red flags, but we all know this is not true. Kesha Pope had access to the racist white man's Facebook, so she saw the post he would make, such as these posts about Obama, which were made years before the murder happened.
Klan Keisha, because like I said, she got self-hatred because she's ignorant of all the stuff I showed you at the beginning. They don't know their history, or they don't care enough, and so they have this disgusting self-hate that draws them to these racist white men, and then they got the nerve to have children with them, and we see all too often some of the results of this. But let's get it.
But let's get to this gruesome story.
Take a look at this picture of this young girl. Deputies say this young girl from Union County, with her entire life ahead of her, was murdered by her own father. Now this afternoon, Channel 9 was there in the courtroom as her father, Joshua Burgess.
Now I want you to pay attention to something. The way that the news is reporting this does not give even half the story of what this degenerate did. And shout out to Only Logical. He's going to bring out the receipts in terms of what he actually did. Let's go.
Made his first appearance. Channel 9's Tina Terry also talked to other members of the young girl's family.
And she's live in the neighborhood, and she was visiting her father this weekend. Tina, when this happened?
Yeah, neighbors here are so stunned by this, Scott and Erica. That 15-year-old girl, Zaria Burgess, was in this neighborhood. As you said, she was visiting her father, who lives here, and deputies are telling us that he murdered his daughter and then turned himself in. Zaria Burgess, a bright 15-year-old with an innocent smile. Tonight, family members told me Zaria was sweet and loved her family.
She was just the type of kid that would come in the room or come in the house and say, hey, everybody, you know, just wanted to make everybody feel.
They say Zaria was getting ready to start her freshman year at Monroe High, but this weekend she was visiting her dad's house on Hampton Meadows Road near Monroe. Sunday morning, her dad, Joshua Burgess, walked into the sheriff's office and told the dispatcher he murdered Zaria.
He stopped her and said, you're not going to find my name. I've just killed someone. And at that point, you know, the red flag started to go off.
Deputies say Burgess gave them detailed information about his daughter's death and where he left the body. In court this morning, officials told the judge Burgess strangled his daughter, then slit her throat. Today, deputies offered no motive.
It's just pure evil.
And as they remember Zaria, family members are trying to understand what would cause her very own father to take her life.
She was so young, and nobody deserves to leave this world like that, especially by someone they thought that was going to protect them and be there for them.
And in court, Burgess kept his head very low. It was hard to see his facial expressions. He made very little eye contact. Officials argued that he should not be released on bond, and the judge agreed with that. He will appear in court again next month. Back to you guys.
Honestly, it just leaves you speechless, Tina, just the details of that. Pure evil is a good way to describe it. Thank you.
Keisha and Joshua met at Weddington School. They were just teenagers. They were only 15 and 16 years old when Zaria was born. It doesn't seem like they were ever actually together, even in high school. Zaria mainly lived with her mother in Union County, North Carolina. However, her father remained very present in her life. He spent every weekend with her when she came to visit him. In his social media posts, he admired his daughter, called her his mini-me, and shared numerous photos with captions noting how much he loved his daughter. And many considered Zaria a happy girl who had his presence in her life. This is why you cannot take social media posts seriously, in particular, from divestors or any white man who is with a divestor. The truth eventually reveals itself. According to testimonies, one of Zaria's closest friends told her mother that Zaria had confessed to her how much she actually disliked spending time at her father's house. She expressed concern that her father had serious anger issues and would sometimes rage at her for no reason. She also claimed that Zaria said she didn't feel accepted by her father's side of the family, as he was white and her mother was black, making her biracial. Zaria's friends and their parents suspected that Joshua might have been using drugs, but she never confirmed this regarding Zaria's mother, Kesha, and her attitude toward how her daughter perceived her father. It was never clearly understood whether Kesha knew about her daughter's feelings toward her father for some time. Kesha was accustomed to weekends without her child and used this time to be part of a dance group at her church. The only way for her to go there was to send Zaria to her father.
Okay. My DJ in the back. Now push play. Thank you.
You don't know what I've been through. Let me share my story with you.
On the weekend of August 17, 2019, Zaria begged and pleaded with her mother not to send her to her father's house. She was so adamant about not going that she sent a message to one of her friends asking to stay overnight, but the friend replied that she couldn't because her family had their own plans for the weekend. So unfortunately, Zaria had no choice but to go to her father's house. Kesha didn't perceive her daughter's hesitation as a warning sign. So she still sent her daughter to be able to be part of the church dance group. What Kesha didn't know, and probably could never have imagined, even in her worst nightmares, was that this would be the last time she would see her daughter Sunday, August 18, 2019, approximately 9:24 in the morning. 32-year-old Joshua Burgess walks into a police station and tells the first officer he sees that he is turning himself in for a crime. Before the information reached the media, Joshua gave the police a complete confession about what he had just done. He named his daughter's full name and with zero emotion, as calmly as possible, explained that he had just taken his daughter's life. And
now this is who Klan Keisha procreates with. Meanwhile, she's going over there trying to be part of some dance group. And what's very interesting is this guy gave a full confession in terms of what he actually did, but you notice the very redacted version that was put on the news, but only logical. And once again, shout out to him. He's going to give the graphic details of what this guy did, and it's crazy. Like I said, you better strap in. Let's go.
if they went to his house now, they could find her body at 5 on 100 Hampton Meadows Road in Union County, Monroe, North Carolina. Neighbors stated that they didn't even know anyone lived in that house. They thought it was abandoned or a den. The police went to the address provided, and indeed there they found the body of 15-year-old Zaria Burgess. When they opened the door to Joshua's house, they entered the living room where they found Zaria's body in a very disturbing state without clothing, with traces of numerous injuries throughout her body, with a serious wound in the neck area. And her hands and feet were restrained with handcuffs. Joshua had positioned Zaria's body as if showcasing his deed, especially considering what he told the police during his confession. Although Zaria's body had numerous wounds, the examination determined that the cause of death was a deep neck injury, officially described as a sharp object wound to the neck. But these are not all the disturbing details of what happened. Before inflicting fatal injuries on Zaria, Joshua tortured his daughter for more than 22 hours.
Damn, you hear that? Tortured for more than... How do you even do that to anybody, much less your daughter? But again, like I showed you earlier, the legacy of the disassociation that happened initially on the plantations, when these white guys, when they're impregnating these black women, they're still seeing those children as basically the descendants of slaves. So they're looking at them still like property, that you could do whatever you want to them. So this is why when they're trying to compare the biracials that are produced by black men to the ones that are produced by black women, it's no comparison, because there's such a long history and the dynamic is so insidious that you have stories like this. And this isn't the only instance. There's tons of stories like this, but let's go.
He committed sexual assault against his own child, psychologically abused her, and applied strangulation. Joshua was charged with one.
So he turned it into a whole ritual. He tortured this girl for 22 hours, his own biological daughter, committing all kinds of acts of rape and torture. And watch, it's going to get really crazy, something he's going to say, but watch this.
One count of first-degree murder, statutory sexual assault of a person 15 years or younger, 3 counts of first-degree sexual assault, first-degree kidnapping, and first-degree sexual exploitation of a minor. According to detectives, Joshua explained several motives for his actions during his confession. But 2 main themes that ran
now watch this.
through everything he said were control and lust.
He said, now where did that come from? Control and lust. That was originated on the plantations. And again, I think after I show you this, we got one other quick story like this, and then we're going to show you something depicted that was going on the plantations as well. Let's get it.
According to information from witnesses who were present in the courtroom during the replay of Joshua's confession, he spoke without any remorse and said that he had planned all of his sinister weekend with Zaria, from breakfast with her to the horrible acts he imagined he would commit, and fantasized about it all day until he surrendered to the police.
So he, not only did he just do this in an act of just, let's say he lost control or something, this demon literally sat down and was planning it out and was fantasizing about it before he even did it. And remember, this is his own biological daughter. Let's go. Not that it would be any better if it was somebody he wasn't his relative, but it's certainly significantly worse the fact that this was his actual flesh and blood. But let's go.
He allegedly stated that he had unnatural feelings towards Aria, and as she grew older, he didn't want her to be with anyone else.
Like a plantation owner, let's go.
He wanted her to belong only to him in the most sick, perverted sense. It is also alleged that he said he initially planned to create a scene at the police station when he came to surrender so that they would shoot him. Essentially, this would have been suicide by police. However, he eventually gave up on this because he was afraid to die. According to those present, Joshua claimed that he enjoyed every moment of—
And he was a coward. But look at this part. It said he enjoyed everything that he did. That is insane. No remorse at all.
According to those present, Joshua claimed that he enjoyed every moment of what he did to Zaria, and that these were the best weekends of his entire life.
What? That is crazy. Now, to me, that's just outrageous.
After he inflicted severe injuries on Zaria and strangled her, he thought she was already dead, but the girl managed to gather her last strength and come to. She had enough strength to get up and try to escape when she rushed to the door.
Yeah, so it's pretty bad, but I think we got one more example of this, and I'm going to show you something else. And yeah, told you guys it's getting kind of crazy. But this is who they choose.
The dangers of being a child of a divestor. Divestors tend to have mental issues, and if you notice, they tend to carry a glass of alcohol everywhere they go. This is their way of ignoring all the red flags of a white man. The mixed women in this story are a disgrace. They would do anything for the white man, and this is the result.
She was subject to hell.
A toddler abused and murdered, a child protection system failing to do its most important job. Tonight, a Care 11 investigation and a warning. This report does contain offensive language.
You can't save your sister because nobody will listen to you.
Here.
Layla Jackson.
Here is where a little boy named Devante visits the baby sister he tried to save.
He was telling the truth. Did nobody listen to him?
No one listened to what was happening behind the walls of this Scott County home, where Hennepin County placed Devante and his little sister Layla in foster care.
Do you think it's cool to scream white power to a baby? Yeah.
The man screaming white power at a black and Native American child? Jason Betlock. His abuse far beyond racist taunts. Some of it discussed in videos taken by Jason's wife Jessica, who wasn't charged, even though she knew.
And you made Layla's face black and blue. Okay, cool.
I never touched that monolith. Just one day after Layla's grandmother took this video,
Come to grandma. Good Monday.
the girl was violently shaken, causing trauma to her brain. Jason is now serving a 30-year murder sentence. Scott County Sheriff's investigators also discovered text messages between the Betlocks about the abuse, even how Jason wrote the word loser on little Layla's face, and the couple's concern, Devante will probably tell someone.
Yep. So, yeah, I just wanted to play a little bit of that one to let you know this is the type of dynamic that these women are creating and bringing children into those situations. But that's the part they don't want to deal with. See, as long as they can get them a mixed baby like this right here. Yep. Or this one right here.
The divestor baby mama. The divestor baby mama is perhaps the most damaging op to the black community. They are deleting 3 birds with 1 stone. First, the child gets attributed to black men, meaning their mixed child gets added to black numbers, making it seem like the father is a black deadbeat, when in reality the white man is the actual deadbeat. Next, they raise their children to take spaces and opportunities from black children. Last, they try to destroy black children's self-esteem because when a black woman has a mixed child with no father, black children will assume the child is black. The issue here is that the mixed child will be treated better than the black child, so it will make the black child grow up believing that the mixed race child's black is better than the actual black child.
Yep. So you see why we create these type of differentials, not to create any type of hatred or anything like that, but you have to do this for the psychological well-being of the actual black children. That's why as I mentioned earlier, you have a lot of black boys in particular that are failing in school and so forth because they're not being taught their real history. They're being taught a BS history by their Klan Keisha mothers in some cases, who deep down they want this type of dynamic that we see right here, and they send that message to their actual black children nonstop. And so that's pretty much what creates this type of chaos that we keep seeing. But let's go.
This is the problem with divester baby mamas, and it's the reason why they should be avoided like the plague. Divestors are only for sex.
And I would even caution you guys with that, because, you know, like I show you guys over here, you know, we're not the D police, but nowadays you're better off being to the point where you're just in monk mode getting your paper until you can get somewhere where you ain't got to deal with them, because these divestors, they'll try to catch you up something terrible, man. You gotta watch your back. Gotta watch your back. Let's go. And yeah, let me show you something right here, because like I said, we're wrapping it up. But this is the type of dynamic that's going on with these swirlers, right? They'll sit up there and they'll be talking like this broad right here. They'll be talking like this right here, all while trying to denigrate you guys. You got these type of, and I was about to put her ass on the thumbnail, this broad right here. She's talking mad crazy.
So where I live, currently a lot of black women are dating white men, Asian men, brown men, Hispanic men. They're dating out in droves. And is it just me, or are you guys sensing this movement?
So this divester right here, we got a bunch of videos from her, these little shorts. She makes these little goofy shorts trying to act like this whole thing about black women and white men is something new. As I showed you when I gave you the history, this has been going on since plantation days. And so this woman is just really delusional. And I'm going to play a couple more clips of her. And we're just going to, I just want you to notice the delusion.
White guys who date black women, or white guys who like black women, country boy edition.
Okay, so I showed you that the plantations, which were basically country boys, and what was going on down there, but she's trying to big up it like it's such a, like this huge phenomenal thing, right? Let's go.
Okay, so the first video I made was about the redheads, because I've noticed that just redheaded men love black women.
You see how ignorant that is? And if you do your research, there's a lot of the redheaded dudes that be doing some of the biggest racial crimes. But I don't know if it's a coincidence, but it's amazing how devoid of facts this woman is. But let's go.
So, but now I'm realizing, like, now that I've moved to a more country-esque...
And a little word to the wise, you guys, stay away from those black women like this with those fake Valley Girl accents. Because, yeah, that's a telltale sound right there that she's on that BS. So let's go.
Location, I've noticed the country boys... The country boys like us too, okay? The country boys are obsessed. I don't know what it is. You literally just have to wear, like, a baseball cap one time to the gym, and you'll see. Like, just test it out. They're obsessed. And my theory is...
And watch this part right here, because...
I think if we're going to talk about...
And look at the standards that she has for the white man compared to some of you guys that may be more straight-laced, you know, just kind of regular dudes. You ain't trying to floss. You ain't trying to be so much, you know, full of swag and all that. You just regular dudes, right? But watch this. Now, you'll be lame, but watch what she got as far as standards for the white man.
The type of white men that like black women. I think it's high time we talk about the type of black women that like white men. Some of us, we don't want you to come already seasoned. You know, like, we want a blank slate. All the black women that like white men can agree that we don't want a pasta that's trying
Oh, so they call them pasta? Is that a thing? Let's go.
to be a black man. You know, like, I want to see how you react to the first time you taste really good curry chicken. Like, I want to see how you react to, like, everyone dancing on I just want a blank slate.
Okay, so she has this thing about the white man got to be he could be a blank slate, but you got to come in the door with all this swag and stuff, right? Crazy. And then watch this right here. Oh yeah, I think I got this other story I want you guys to see as well. And once again, shout out to Only Logical. He's been breaking this down for a long time.
Divesting gone terribly wrong. Black people need to social distance away from divestors. Subscriber, Men Being Happy released an excellent video titled Social Distance Away From Them, where he made excellent points about divestors.
You gotta social distance away from them because of two reasons. First and most importantly, their networks, meaning the people they're connected to that will connect themselves to you, if you're dumb enough to, those networks are full of poisoned men, because they are attracted to terrible men. Black men have been saying this for a while, okay? But this is the way it really works. They're attracted to pookies first and foremost. Criminals, people who have sent others to the upper room, face tests, incarcerated over and over. That's what they like. And if they can't get that guy, they want to become a divester. After they're done with pookie and they get 3 to 5 kids, they've been abused, they've gone through all of that, and they're tired of that for a while. They're all hurt and beat up. They want to go divest to a white man. And the kind of white men that they can get are usually the worst kind of white dudes out there, because they can't get the good ones.
Yeah, that's a good point, because that lets you know why a lot of the bottom of the barrel guys, these racist guys, these Klan members, essentially, those are the guys who are rejects from their own community, so they don't mind having these black women who are basically willing to do whatever they want to do, and they have a lot of self-hate issues, and so those white men are feeding off of that. And there's plenty of high-profile women that fit that narrative. We don't have to say any names or anything, but what the hell is she doing here? What is Candace Owens? Why did she just pop out of nowhere? Speak of the devil. Anyway, I don't know how Candace showed up on my screen, but anyway, yeah, they just have a lot of ingrown self-hatred, and but that's a good point. That's the reason why a lot of them are with these type of dudes. So let's go.
Okay, white women get the best white men. They get what's left. They get what's left after white women get them, Hispanic women get them, Asian women get them, and whatever is left, usually some guy that is a criminal, just like the old Pookie, that's what they try to get. And with that, or some old man, like a 90-year-old, 80-year-old old man.
Oh yeah, don't even get me started on that. We have some clips on that too, but I don't even need to play them, but because you already know what that is. Let's go.
They think they're going to get some money from, and they're not. We got so many stories.
Yeah, so let me fast forward to this part right here. And this woman, look what she did.
William Little in Albany County Court this morning. A Superior Court information alleged that between January 5th, 2023 and February 1st, 2023, Stewart stole a total of approximately $28,500 from a victim. Specifically, she was accused of cashing several checks from the victim's account while working as their home health aide. The victim was diagnosed with dementia and was unable to consent to those payments. Sentencing is scheduled for February 2nd, 2024. The defendant faces a sentencing range of no less than 5 years of probation and no more.
To the black daughter, because her divester mother allowed a white criminal to off the white man, but too bad. The white man really didn't like her. He just needed a place to stay. R.I.P. to the black.
And wait a minute, her name had the nerve to be Keisha? Keisha Care? Oh, look, Keisha. But anyway, yeah, how ironic. Let's go.
He just needed a place to stay. R.I.P. to the black daughter because her divester mother allowed a white criminal to stay in their home. Let's get to the story. Rensselaer County resident Robert Fisher, age 34, pleaded guilty to murder and
they sure can pick them, don't they? I mean, they just so happen to pick these guys. And wait till you find out how long she knew this guy before she brought him around her kid. It's crazy. Let's go.
Rape on Tuesday, July 9th, and the death of Josephina Cunningham. According to prosecutors, emergency crews were called to the girls' Rensselaer home near Broadway and Tracy Street on July 7, 2023, after relatives found her not breathing. Josephina's mother, Keisha, found her lying lifeless on the floor, foaming at the mouth and drenched in bleach, the girl's brother, Jaquan Stewart, said. At the time of her murder, Josephina was left in the care of Fisher, who was dating the child's mother. The grieving brother disclosed to the U.S. Sun how his mother introduced Fisher to her kids days before his sister's killing. Stewart said he felt something off about Fisher the first time he laid eyes on him. Something felt a little off inside when I first met him. It was a little off. I just felt something in my gut, he said, adding that his mother had only been seeing Fisher for a week.
She only been seeing him for a week and she got that man around her kids. That's crazy.
Saw my mother with a white guy before. Maybe that's why, but I never spoke to her about their relationship. It was like she was hypnotized. She was too deep.
She was hypnotized by the white man because, she's a Klan Keisha, self-hatred, and they put themselves and their kids in harm's way on a daily basis. This is just one example. This happens hundreds and not thousands of times. Let's go.
In love with him. It was actually kind of strange. It's clear she was in love with his white skin. After all, she was 43 and the white man was 34. She probably was happy because she thought she would get pregnant with the magical mixed race baby. I mean, she abandoned her older son and sacrificed her young black daughter while being in love with the white man in less than a week. She loved whiteness. If you have children with a divester, please keep them away from the divester so the children have a chance at living a normal life. Divesting gone wrong.
So this is what they claim is the best union between them, the Klan Keishas and the white men. According to them, that's the best union, right? So I don't know if you guys are seeing the whether or not that's true at this point. But, yeah. So let me show you something right here that I find pretty interesting before we wrap up. As I showed you, this kind of all started in the plantation days, and I want you to see this depiction about how things used to go down. Check this out. Now watch this right here.
Mammy! Mammy! Where are you, you black slut? You come here now! Move your big fat black ass! Come here, I said!
I'm coming! I'm here! I'm right here, master!
Now remember, these divestors and swirlers or whatnot, they start calling the black women who actually rock with black dudes the mammies. But this is the actual depiction of the true mammies that were catering to every whim of the white man like they do in modern times. But they want to try to project. And it's like Israel Young Lion said before, everything that they do is a projection. But this was how it used to go down with the actual mammies on them plantations. So let's go.
What wrong? Idiot! What's wrong? You old fool! This is what's wrong! Did you or did you not send me this fraud?
Why, master? How come you talk like that, master? I don't fraud nobody, master. That Helen, master, she a beautiful wench.
You listen, you stupid black bitch. At 60, I don't give a damn for her beauty. You send me a virgin. Get rid of her.
That's not possible. Wait, master, I'll send you another wench more open. All right, girl. whore, you still virgin? Or can't he make it with you? Answer me, bitch! You still virgin? Yes or no? You good? You whore!
Does you want... Mammy told me sometimes white folks must play with this before they can pleasure the girls.
This is madness. What wicked person taught you such things? Just imagine the trouble I'd be in if someone... Oh, my God, only 13. 13? You can't do this to me.
No, no, Master, please. Don't send me away, Master.
Quiet.
Please don't send me away.
Please, don't make so much
Master.
noise.
Pleasure me. Pleasure me. Please, Master.
Right now.
It's where the Klan Keisha, they learned it on the plantation. They've been doing it ever since. This is where the Klan Keishas came from. Let's go.
Here.
Your bed is so big, and I'm so small. And if I take off my dress, I don't smell. Do I, Massa? I don't smell. If you is really sleepy, Massa, I won't bother you. But it's too bad, Massa. I like you so much, Massa. It would be so good with you, Massa. And Mammy wouldn't beat me no more.
This is unbelievable. Are you really a virgin? Oh, no, child. You see, if you must do it, it would be better with someone your own age and perhaps color.
You mean with a black man, Massa? No, no. I don't like black men, Massa.
So you say she don't like no black man, right? Let's go.
No, Massa. I can't stand black men. Once, so Mammy wouldn't whip me, I had to try it.
See, do they sound like the modern day divestors on YouTube or what? I mean, this is, you know what I mean? It's, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Let's go.
He hurt me, Massa. Too big, too strong. White man is smaller, Massa. Better for the first time. And they not smell, Massa. Oh, Massa. Massa, please. Please do it to me, Massa. Massa. Thank you, Massa. Massa.
Yep. And that's how you wind up in modern times getting stuff like this right here. Look at the t-shirt. Huh? I think you guys should be able to see it, but let me zoom in a little bit. Yep, there you go. They be out there advertising. And they're also into, I know you've heard about the race play and all that kind of stuff. A lot of these Klan Keishas, they like doing this type of stuff too, like this. You see that? See what she got written on her? Told you. It's crazy out here. This is just a small snippet. This is the type of stuff they like to do behind closed doors. They even got these open Broadway shows where they do this little slave play thing, but they really be going in behind the scenes, having these women do this, writing all kind of stuff like this on them. And some of these women be doing it themselves in advertising it. They'll send it to them. They'll take pictures of themselves like this and send it to whatever white man will, be so inclined as to take her little offers. But that is the dynamic between the Klan Keisha and their white benefactors. But again, guys, it's even crazier than we had time to depict. But I hope that gave you just a small snippet and why we had to do this, because again, we had to show you how degenerate the relationship between these men and the women are while they're trying to demonize you in whatever relationships you're in. They have all that going on. Right? So we have to close out this ExTHOTical series going in on that, because the last episode we dealt with Karen's daughters, and we had to, deal with that part of the equation, but we definitely had to get on this equation that we call Klan Keisha's kids, and you see how bad that rabbit hole, or how bad it can be, and how deep that rabbit hole can go. So again, I do see some people still in the house. Salute to you guys. I think my chat then got stuck or whatever, but I appreciate all of you guys for staying up this late. I know, once again, this was not our normal scheduled program. We had to just go ahead and drop this one for you. We still will be going live at our normal time this week, but because we had some issues, again, I don't know if somebody didn't want this broadcast to happen, but we were having all kinds of issues known to man the last time. But maybe, as you can see, the type of stuff we dropped tonight is maybe the reason. But as per usual, because we are so tenacious, we made sure that we got this thing cracking, and we're still able to produce this broadcast for you. But once again, salute, appreciate you, and we're going to wrap it up with that. We're going to end the way we always do. We're not just a broadcast. We are a squad cast. There's a very big difference. Mission complete. Over and out.